want to live the way we please. As long as we have done our best, then no one can do more.
Hello there, welcome to the Flashing Blade podcast. I'm Siobhan. Voices ringing in their heads, they're crashing hands in time, in sequence and in rhyme. Let's meet the plucky girl assistant singular tonight. It's Lilibet, the Wonder Girl.
Hello.
Hello. Now, gentlemen, in my head you tossed a coin earlier, and the winner ended up being Toby. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first guest, Mr. Toby Hadoke.
That means Stephen gets the "and" credit. It's "and" Stephen, which is actually means that he's more important. That's how I'm going to take it.
I listened to that show. I listened to that podcast.
Hi, I'm Toby. I appear with tedious regularity on various Doctor Who home videograms, as I think they're called these days, in order to future-proof them against the advance of technology. And I'm also a working stand-up comedian, actor, writer, and fast becoming the Michael Sheard of podcasts. If people ask me, I'll say yes. So there we go. That'll do, I think.
I'm glad you did the introduction because I didn't have to.
You'd never heard of me.
No. Someone else I haven't heard of, or at least I wish I had. I mean, anyway, it's Stephen Newboy Noonan.
Toby's theory would suggest that Eutha Joyce is less important than Brian Murphy.
Ooh.
And indeed, that Ernie Wise is less important than Eric Morecambe.
No, because it's not quite the same, because that's starring Eutha Joyce and Brian Murphy, starring Eric Morecambe and Ernie Wise, as opposed to starring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Bruce Willis as or whatever.
That's how you heard it. I see. Yes, very good. Well, I think it ought to be equal billing, but it's a delight to be here to talk about Quatermass 2. And I believe Spearhead from Space. Is that right? Is that what we're going to be talking about?
That's right.
Yeah.
However,
fantastic.
And it's pure fluke timing. I saw something on the Big Finish Twitter feed. Why? But an hour ago. They're releasing Fugitive of the Daleks this coming week.
Oh, really? Oh,
so
right,
you can do a bit of publicity for it if we
had
an audience.
I think you've done it. I think that's all the publicity we need.
$5 in the post, please. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Along with all those coffees I owe you.
Oh, there's so many cups of decaf. It's just.
Yeah. There's a whole sort of there's a whole Quatermass-like sort of food dome of coffee that I think you're owed there. Probably.
I like to think of it's got to the point now it's a gender in itself.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Do you know, if he were growing coffee in there, we would have been fine.
Why haven't you been growing coffee in there? What are you growing in there? Don't tell me.
No, it's better not to know.
All right, fair enough.
It was the actual aliens themselves. It wasn't food stuff, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right.
No, yeah, it was thlike their thing.
Yeah, it's their atmosphere.
Their atmosphere or whatever.
Their living conditions. Anyway, I'll
growth
tell you
medium.
what. News. This has not been confirmed, and it's annoying me that people are going around saying it's been confirmed. But apparently, Millie Gibson has left Doctor Who. Again, no idea if this is true or not. It was a Mirror newspaper report, and they worded it not very nicely by saying she'd been dropped. And frankly, not impressed with the Mirror and some fans. So consider yourselves having a slap on the wrist. Wait and see, huh? Plus, if you're turning around and saying, well, she's gotten rid of after the, one series, look at the first RTD run. No companion really lasted more than one series apart from Rose, and in that case, the Doctor changed. So...
Listen, I've got no idea what's going on. I don't know any insight at all. However, they said ghosts had been axed. when the makers of Ghosts went, we don't want to make Ghosts anymore. But the headline is more
We're done.
exciting
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
say Ghosts axed. It wasn't axed. And I remember when they were gunning for Pearl Mackie because she was an actress of color playing a non-heterosexual character. So of course they go, well, we've got this. The first news story was, well, there's that. It's all gone woke. And then they were like, oh, and now they've fired her because she's leaving at the end of the year, even though it seems.
Oh no.
As long as that character is going to last in that arc. So what they do is they spin that into a story. And of course, the tenor of that reporting is then to say, see, they go all woke and people don't like it, so they get rid of her, which is none of those things are true, but they take the timeline and the story, and that's how they spin it, because that's how they make it exciting. I don't know what's happened with Minnie Gibson, but I suspect the people that are writing the story don't either. And it could be as simple as, because of course she's been making the show a lot longer than we've been following it, and it's been being made without our knowledge and all of that sort of thing. So
Yes.
I just say, take from it what you want, but don't indulge in the worst sort of gossip just because that's how the tabloids like to create the tenor of reportage, and just enjoy the show and hope that she had a great time and she's decided to leave and go on to wonderful things, and that everyone's all fine and dandy.
Could you do me a favour? Could you come on every show and explain what I mean so eloquently every time I open my mouth, please?
Only if I can log on at the click of a switch and not have to spend 15 minutes arsing around with microphones and headphones after I've had a really long day. Yeah.
Oh, Discord, you never let us down.
It's scarcely worth mentioning, is it? Because this is just, as you say, tabloid reportage to give it, more dignity than it deserves. It's just another pile of crap from the small newspapers, isn't it?
If they can get clicks and engagement, they will.
Yeah. She might have decided to leave, after a year. As you say, a year is a sort of quite an average length of time for a companion,
And
isn't
apparently
it?
she'll be
Going
popping up.
back over the.
She'll apparently popping up 2 or 3 times during the next series. A bit like Freema Agyeman. She did her one series and then popped up here and there afterwards. So it's nothing unusual.
No. And the fact is, we don't know. So it's an extreme waste of everybody's time and energy.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, it filled a nice 5 minutes. Thank you, guys. Oh, dear. Right, I can get rid of that. No Brian tonight, boys and girls. Sorry. He's off being American somewhere. I've tried complaining, but no one seems to take me seriously. Who knew? How are things with you, Lilibet?
For a bit of a cold, but other than that, not too bad. Had my 11-year-old nieces around for the long weekend last weekend, and they had lots and lots of fun, but they are exhausting.
And they pass on germs, don't they, Lilibet?
They do, although I don't think it was their fault. I took them to the Children's Museum, and we went to the farmer's market, and we went to the 2 bookstores. So we were around a lot of different people.
Are you saying it's dangerous to go outside?
Well, there's...
You see, I was right all along. Come on. Oh, that's interesting.
You froze a bit on my end, but I suspect I didn't freeze on yours.
Everybody froze for about 5 seconds.
So,
At least it wasn't just me.
No, and it's not my internet tonight.
Was that the Museum of Childhood in Bethnal Green you went to?
No. No. I live in Florida.
Oh God, sorry. Oh, how parochial of me. Sorry, I've had a long day as well. What a ridiculous mistake to make. I should have guessed. I should have guessed from the accent, my dear.
So it's okay. It's all right. Yeah. I live diagonally between Orlando and Tampa.
Yeah, that's quite a long way from Bethnal Green, isn't it? Quite a way.
Slight bit.
Yeah. Bit of a
Slight
schlep.
bit.
Yeah.
I'm sending you for Christmas. I'm sending you a signpost saying Bethnal
Oh.
Green.
Bethnal Green.
I'm never gonna. I'll never live this down, will I? Never live this down.
It's quite all right.
I once changed flights. Oh no, I was supposed to change flights in Florida, and then I missed the flight, and so I had to stay overnight in a hotel. So I saw it at night, and I saw glamorous palm trees and very large, expensive cars
That would be.
on a balmy night.
Yeah.
And I never saw it in Delhi because I had to get an early flight the next morning. So I have this sort of very surreal crepuscular memory of Florida and going from a hotel in a car to going to the airport to the hotel and then back again.
I've just realised something. You use a little bit. This is going to be a joy for you this evening because he swallowed the whole Pip and Jane Baker thesaurus. This one. He will come out with all sorts of different words you may not have heard before, but you're an English major, so I want definitions, please, when he comes out with stuff. Has it frozen again?
It did. You're still there. Yeah.
There you go.
It's Discord itself. Should explain
Is that happen a lot? Does that happen every time?
No.
I
think mostly just to Siobhan.
It could
it's
just
a
be
slow night.
I think it might be the storm.
A slow night,
to be honest.
Oh yes, a bit windy, isn't it?
Yeah,
a bit windy.
Depending.
Is it windy in Florida?
Well, it is a bit windy today. We were on a wind chill advisory last night, because it got all the way down in my part of Florida to about 37 degrees Fahrenheit, which is something like 3 or 4 in your money.
Yeah. Does it ever get very cold there? The coldest place I've ever been in the world was Minnesota in December. And I realized what cold meant. And subsequent to that, if anybody says it's cold, in January in England, they're talking rubbish. Because it never gets so cold that you can't breathe in,
Yes.
Or it doesn't matter how many layers you put on, the cold will get you in the face like little knives,
Yeah.
But I would imagine that's a problem in Florida, is it?
That is not a problem where I live. No.
No.
Alligators, on the other hand.
Well, yes, alligators, hurricanes.
Oh, alligators. Yeah.
Yeah, alligators, hurricanes. Yeah. But last winter, my parents live in Tallahassee, which is the Panhandle area of Florida, and they did have a hard freeze last winter. And this is an incredibly Florida story. We had to rush out to the front yard and pick all the lemons off the trees so they wouldn't get destroyed in the freeze.
Oh, wow.
So we had bushels of lemons in the garage.
So you've got lemon trees in your garden, have you?
My mom does, yes.
Your mother does, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we grew up with oranges and lemons.
Anyone?
But not the bells of St. Clement.
There it is.
Not the bells of St. Clement.
That would be if you were able to go to the Museum of Childhood in Bethnal Green more locally.
Exactly.
And Toby, where are you at the moment? Where exactly is home?
I'm in Chorlton cum Hardy in South
Oh,
Manchester.
lovely.
Oh, that reminds me of an Arthur Askey routine.
Go on.
He did it on Blue Peter as an example of a pantomime joke. You had Pete and John as the two ugly sisters. And I can't remember what he was playing, possibly Baron Hardup. But he said he could prove that they weren't there. And he said, well, how do you prove that it wasn't? Give us a tenner. And it's a case of, right, well, you're not in Manchester, are you? No, I'm not in Chorlton cum Hardy. No. Well, if you're not in Manchester or Chorlton cum Hardy, then you must be somewhere else. Yes, well, if you're somewhere else, you can't be here. Very old panto routine. It was funny, and they put it in the Blue Peter book of that year.
What was on the cover of the Blue Peter book of that year?
I think it was John skydiving. I think it was the 11th.
Is that the 11th one?
I think so.
What was the one with the infinite regression? Do you know the one with
the
squares?
I know.
Was that the 10th? Was that the 10th book?
Might have been. I don't know.
Oh, I was thinking of a list of things of how things went wrong in 1978. Along with Doctor Who.
I was going to say this horror of fang rock thing's getting serious, isn't it?
Yeah. Well. And Nick Briggs the other day said, I've changed my mind. I watched Horror of Fang Rock the other day. and it's already infected with Williamsness. I said, no, it isn't. No, it's got Paddy Russell directing it. There's safe hands on the tiller. It's Robert Holmes's script editing. It's solidly made in Birmingham.
That's
the main requirement.
Like the gun in Talons of Weng Chiang in the previous story. So yeah, no, I won't hear of Horrifying not being included in the sort of the first great stint of Doctor Who. But 1978 also saw the departure of both John Noakes and Peter Purves from Doctor Who. I think
from Doctor Who
in that year, from Blue Peter and Doctor Who were very closely related, as we know.
Well, quite.
But yeah,
Twinned with.
So there we are. So that goes on the list of things that went wrong in 1978, like Morecambe and Wise leaving the BBC. That was another thing, wasn't it? So the end of that year.
You're becoming obsessed.
No, it's just it amuses me. That's all. It amuses me.
Okay.
It's more of a sort of idée fixe than an obsession.
All right.
But Toby, do you remember Doctor Who in '78? What's your first Doctor Who memory?
My first Doctor Who memory is a repeat in the summer of The Invisible Enemy.
That summer of '78, yeah.
Yeah.
So you remember the repeat of The Sunmakers, which was the other one.
I don't. The only reason I remember the repeat of Invisible, well, no, I remember more than the first episode, but I remember the first episode, and I know it was the repeat because I was watching it with my brothers, and one of them said, "Oh, I remember this. This is where their faces turn furry," and lo and behold, then their faces turn
that's
furry.
Exactly what happened. Yeah.
And then I remember the sort of white corridors and bits of K9's Happy People, and I remember this bald man in a white suit, which turned out to be Michael Sheard.
Michael Sheard, indeed.
Many years later. So I remember that quite a lot. I don't really remember the Sunmakers, and then I remember a lot of Pirate Planet.
Piece of Time stuff, yeah.
But again, it may have been a repeat because I remember Pirate Planet, but I don't remember Kroll or
Androids of Tara.
Androids of Tara. I don't think I remember, or even Stones of Blood. But I remember Pirate Planet quite strongly, and then I remember lots and lots of season.
Well,
17.
Pirate Planet was repeated. Well, that was one of the that was that and Androids of Tara were the two repeats in the summer. So that's the repeated ones are always better remembered, aren't they? The Sea Devils being the most remembered to our generation because it was repeated twice. I think it's the only story was repeated twice in the 70s. I think So when did you start sort of knowing what it was and following the plots, as it were, or that you were a little fan, as it were? Toby?
Well, I knew what it was because my brothers had the Target novels and we had the Doctor Who Monster book and things like that. So and they used to play Doctor Who and so it was always on. What I loved about Doctor Who is that it was always sort of part of the furniture, and that even the grown-ups knew what it was. It was a touchstone that everybody sort of had. And then when 1983 came along, and I got Doctor Who: A Celebration for Christmas, and the 20th anniversary Radio Times special came out, and I discovered all of the stuff I didn't know. I thought I knew a lot before then because we'd got loads of Target books. But then there was suddenly, Peter Purves was in Doctor Who, I discovered. And there were stories called things like The Savages. I never heard of those. Having thought I was pretty much an expert because we had loads of Target books because there were 4 of us. So, relatives might have to get us one each or whatever. So we built up the collection fairly quickly.
So where were you in the pecking order? Were you the youngest or
the youngest?
And they were all Doctor Who fans. The older brothers.
They all passed through
phases of Doctor Who
and left it behind. But again, we were a sort of house that we watched things and were aware of popular culture and stuff like that. So everybody sort of knew it was on. But I was the only. I could say to my brothers now, sort of quite detailed stuff that they kind of know what I was talking about, but I was the only one that sort of deep dived probably into the behind the scenes stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
But they're my 2 older brothers will have read quite a lot of the Target books.
You'd have been getting Doctor Who monthly as it was at that time. Were you?
Not really, because we lived out in the middle of nowhere. There was no, I mean, there was a village shop. There wasn't a newsagents or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I could only pick up Doctor Who magazine on holidays and things like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
I got the odd summer special and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I would be gifted one, or come across one, or somebody would find one in a car boot sale or whatever. And I only started subscribing to Doctor Who magazine, in my teens. But by then I'd met a fan in Wolverhampton who had all the back issues, and he lent me all of his. Which I still have actually, and I've tried to give them back to him, but he seems quite relaxed about it. So then I had a wonderful time of going through.
Yeah.
I love that archaeology. That to me is as exciting as watching the program.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Can I just say how much I'm bloody enjoying this? I
Well,
really
we've never
am.
met before.
No, I know. That's what
we've never
I've been
met
trying to
but-
get you
no,
to
but-
meet.
Steve, you know, we were actually up for the same part in something.
No, what was that?
A Fool to Don Warrington's Lear.
Oh, good lord! Which I didn't end up doing.
No, nor did I. But I think you were cast, weren't you? I wasn't.
I was
Yeah.
cast, and I ended up not doing it. Yes.
Well,
Because
another
I was-
actor I have worked with, Miltos Yorolamu, he ended up doing it.
Right.
Yeah,
yes.
I auditioned for that, but I didn't get anywhere near it.
That was in Manchester, wasn't it? Good
Yeah.
lord, yeah. No. Well, we have met, Toby, don't you?
Have we?
Oh no.
Yeah, at the Sea Devils showing at the BFI.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
I came up to you
Oh, Christ, yes.
and I said you're one of my favourite people in the world. And you looked sort of a little bit embarrassed because it sounds quite hyperbolic, but it's actually true, or hyperbolical indeed. And you sort of went, oh, thank you very much. And I thought, oh, I shouldn't have said that because that's a bit intense, really. But
I
it's
didn't
true.
realise it was you. Even though if I'd seen if your spotlight photo had come up and said it,
Well,
I'd have gone,
no,
that's
but-
Steve Noonan.
No. But why would you? And because I'd done the quiz of Rassilon, and our team won.
Oh, you do surprise me.
Me and John Dorney and a few other people, and Josh Carr, who did a podcast the other week with Rory Guest, who's got a channel called Rassilon Productions, mentioned this on this interview he was doing with Rory. He said we were at the next table, and we looked to our right, and there was a doctor with a load of Big Finish writers, and we thought, well, we probably don't so much. I said, well, being playing a part doesn't necessarily mean you know anything about the history of the program.
That's true.
Sylvester McCoy would be shit at it.
Well, as indeed would a number of others who I shall not mention. But no, Capaldi would probably win. I'd have thought Capaldi would stand a good chance of doing very well indeed. But no, I wanted to say that, and I didn't get any further than that because I sort of lost my. But I want to say one of my favourite things about Doctor Who DVDs, I often enjoy if it's a good day with the right panelists, as it were, and they're in the right mood for it. A DVD commentary is as enjoyable as the product itself. In fact, it's a bit guilty sometimes, I feel, because I often go straight to the commentary and then think I actually better watch the episode again, hadn't I? Because I'm taking more interest. And as soon as you arrived on the commentary scene as mediator, just the whole level of the thing went up because you've got that extraordinary combination of encyclopedic knowledge, but knowing how to talk to actors, how to elicit what's needed, how to keep the thing moving, how to keep it relating to what's going on the screen, and that wonderful sort of sense of humor, of it being funny, but you're not intrusive with it. It's just it's the perfect balance,
Well, that's very kind of you. Well,
it's absolutely sincere. And some of the documentaries, like the one about revisiting Who's Doctor Who. Because it's one of the great tragedies of my life that I was in hospital when Who's Doctor Who was transmitted, but my parents recorded a cassette recording of it off the telly, and so I knew it for years, with little interjections, little narrative interjections from my father saying, "Rubbing Swarthega between the hands." In the Dick Mills bit, and my mother knowing all the names of the characters. This is Davros. That's Agador. and then and my father saying this is probably not quite correct these days, but when Mr. Sin said, "This is the dwarf playing Mr. Sin," my father said,
Oh, nice.
and so I didn't see it until it was shown in Liverpool. There was a Merseyside local group meeting in the late '80s, and I finally was able to make sense of the pictures to the audio and saying, "Oh, that's what that clip was," because there's a montages of clips where you hear a bit of Carey Blyton's incidental music from the Silurians, and it cuts to Packer screaming in The Invasion, and there's a bit of Dudley Simpson's music from the Axons, and it all cuts together very quickly. And there's Lynx's face at the end of Time Warrior episode 1, and so seeing it, I go, oh, that's what that was. It was just this sort of insane phantasmagoria of sound, with no, and then seeing it eventually. So when it came out on DVD for the first time, which was the DVD release of Talons of Weng Chiang, which I think was early 2000s, 2003 possibly, I think, the first time, I was as eager to get the DVD to own Who's Doctor Who as to have Talons of Weng Chiang on DVD. And it's such a great sort of document of the time of the way documentaries were made, and how sort of, I hesitate to use the word highbrow, but it's not in any way dumbed down, is it? It's treating Doctor Who as an important cultural artifact. And Tony, what's the name of it? Tony
Cash
has the same respect for it as he would to, if they were talking about Chekhov or whatever else it was. And the way that, all those people are interviewed, and John Miller, the psychologist, is interviewed. I bought books by him because of that program, and so it was fantastic to see you interviewing those people and see him still alive and well, and the girl lives around the corner, that the chatty one, Karen Scott, I think her name was. I see her regularly on a bus because she lives. And I've never got the courage up to go and say to her, because it would seem a bit weird.
Oh, you should.
on a bus to say, "You're Karen Scott, and I just adore your interviews on Who's Doctor Who." She'd probably quite like it, wouldn't she? But I've never.
She'd love it.
She's often on the phone or she's with somebody, and I feel a bit shy to do it. And of course to see the finale interview with the mother of the tragically sort of lost little girl, the Ice Warriors, and when she does that Ice Warrior impression, it's just absolutely sublime, So that I think that made that. There's a lot of great documentaries that you've done, but I think that's probably amongst my favourites,
Oh, bless you. I didn't have high hopes for that one, to be honest. It was Chris's idea, and I went, oh well, okay, what are a load of people who used to be school kids gonna say? And actually, there was something really humbling about being in that school with the tiny chairs and seeing those kids as adults, and the passage of time is humbling enough, but when you see kids into adults, and the lovely thing of Roger, who had been the really surly kid, go, "Whoa, there's a lot of old rubbish," going, it's amazing, and I love the fact it's still and that sort of transformative thing was really beautiful. And Tony Cash obviously died, about 4 months after we'd done it as well. So it was lovely that we'd been able to do that.
If there's nothing good coming on, I'll watch it. That was one of the things.
Yeah,
that
that's it. Yeah. Now he watches it with his daughter, which is beautiful.
And the little boy Caspar, who's grown up to look exactly like his father,
Yeah.
And his father was dressed there in a sort of Pertwee-esque velvet jacket, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And to see him to have done so well and to be a doctor or whatever he was, and to still have that shining light in his eyes, there's a 7-Up feeling to that revisit there, but one that's so very, very meaningful for Doctor Who fans, for those of us who saw it or didn't get to see it, but so wanted to see it. I was in a ward children's hospital, and it was the night it was the debut of Jesus of Nazareth on ITV, and the nurses wouldn't turn over And she said, "We never have BBC Two on in this ward." And there was another kid with his leg in a plaster, those like Laurel and Oliver Hardy with the leg up, in the air. And he was a Doctor Who fan at the other end of the ward. And all the kids were going, "Oh, please, can we see the Doctor Who thing?" Said, "No, we're watching Jesus of Nazareth." And so we're sitting there with that on, watching Robert Powell for 2 hours, knowing that on the other side was as we thought at the time, the only possibility of ever seeing clips at that
Old
time,
Doctor
of old Doctor Who. And I'd written to the BBC and between Seeds of Doom and Mask of Mandragora, asking for a repeat, and I'd had the letter back from Sheila Mullins (Miss) of the BBC, whatever it was, department, telling me the news that they would be unable to show anything more than 2 years old because of contractual agreements with Actors Equity, but also the programs were in the process of being wiped to make way for new programs. And so that was the first time I thought, oh my God, they're getting rid of them. At the age of 8, I learned that. And then she said, the last one, she said, however, there will be a repeat of the Seeds of Doom this summer, which was a lie. There wasn't. That never happened. I don't know what happened to that.
They were planning it, though. They were planning it.
They were planning it. No, I think we got Planet of Evil and Sontaran Experiment. I think we got a Monday to Thursday Planet of Evil and then a compilation Sontaran Experiment on the Friday.
Shall we? Sorry to interrupt.
We've already digressed for about half an hour.
We have, haven't we? Yes. I'm going to now play a little bit of video to introduce things. Well, it's either I hold up a sign or something. Anyway, and now from the worlds of BBC Television's Doctor Who, it's Quatermass. Look, I don't have any Quatermass title stings. I'm an idiot. Right. Okay.
Have we finished? Is the clip finished?
Yes, love, you can come back now.
Right. Oh, there I am.
There we go.
What was the clip? What was the clip? Do we have to answer questions on it? Like on
No.
Right, go on.
It's just
I was joking.
Title.
The answers on the laser display board, and we all have to guess.
Yes, that's it. Held proudly aloft by Samantha. Right. So anyway,
what were you showing there, Siobhan?
We didn't see that.
Are we allowed to know?
Yeah, we've got. I'm surprised you haven't seen it before, actually, because you.
I don't know what it is. You haven't told us what it is.
It's the Doctor Who opening thing, where.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah.
The mournful. Theme thing, which I love.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were showing a bit of Quatermass.
No, I like I say, I haven't got a Quatermassy style sting. Toby does. Toby, ask me anything's, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got all the Quatermass music. Yes.
Is that called Escape Velocity? That piece of music.
I lose.
That's my favourite one. That's the really sort of scary sort of
that is called that's called Mutations, isn't it? Escape Velocity.
Oh.
I can tell you. See, I don't remember any of this stuff because I write it all down and put it into a book that's taken forever to.
There's a lot to retain. There's a lot in there already, Toby, isn't there? Let's face it, in your mind.
Well, I don't remember the stuff I used to remember, though. That's the sad thing. Hang on, but I'm gonna tell you. Quatermass in the Pit contents. What's that? Quatermass in the Pit. Quatermass and the Skits. That's a good title for a chapter, isn't it?
They get very bored in the spaceship. They do mime for a bit.
Going to Edinburgh next year.
Well, it's because there were quite a few spoofs of Quatermass.
There was a Bob Monkhouse did one at the time, didn't he?
Of Quatermass 2, yes, indeed.
Of Quatermass 2, yeah. What was it called? 3:15, I think it was called, wasn't it?
Well, it's got they because they tried to get the three.
And there we go again.
Gray.
Monica Gray and Hugh Griffith, and
That's right, yeah.
they all fell over in the foam and apparently collapsed into giggles, and it was a bit of a disaster. But it doesn't exist anymore. So
No, thankfully, John Robinson refused. I think, didn't he? I think.
Yeah, John Robinson turned them down. Now then,
I've got a feeling that one's called Escape Velocity, and it's from a suite called Space Challenge or something.
Hang on, here we go. Escape Velocity. Yes, it's
That's
the
right.
recap music, and it's after Quatermass. Escape Velocity, which is from a disc called The Challenge of Space Part
Challenge
1.
of Space. That's right. Trevor Duncan, is that?
Trevor Duncan, yes. His
Trevor
real
Duncan
name
in
was,
inverted commas. Yes.
his real name was Leonard Treblecock.
Oh, magnificent. Magnificent nameage.
Yeah.
Right, now, look, there's an army place, right, and it's scanning using radar, and it picks up what seem to be meteorites.
It's the plot, Siobhan.
Yes.
plot.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
right.
We get to the whole
love.
thing.
Yeah, and
It's going
basically,
to be here a long time.
and basically, the meteorite seems to land next to a yokel, and things happen. Now then, whoever goes first has got to decide whether we're going to talk about Quatermass 2 or Speared from Space first.
I see.
Well-
You're just giving the plot of it. What is that, Toby? What's that? Is that?
This is Nigel Neal's camera script for
Oh
Quatermass.
wow!
Oh,
The
wow.
actual
Very cool.
the
Quatermass
definite
2.
article. Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful!
Oh,
Wonderful!
look, there's his handwriting making changes onto the camera script.
Magnificent!
Hang on.
Magnificent!
Does that need to get kid to get into trouble?
Yeah, sort of. No, it's an extra line for Captain Dillon.
Oh dear. So who would like? Oh,
Which is rather jolly. They were rescued.
sorry, with that freeze, Noonan just vanished suddenly.
Oh yeah.
Who would actually like to make a start on Quatermass 2?
Well, who of you guys had seen this before or not? Because obviously
I
I've seen
have.
it about a million times.
I had seen the first couple of episodes because at some point we were supposed to do it earlier and then we didn't.
Right.
So I'd seen a few episodes and then I went through and watched them properly, all of them. I rated Dave's DVD.
And how familiar are you, Stephen, with Quatermass?
Well, with Quatermass as a whole, my first knowledge of it was my mother had an extraordinary ability to describe 50s and 60s television programs and films that she'd seen with almost like storyboarding. And the ones that were extraordinary storytelling ability. And so there were things that she would tell me at her knee, which was sort of, far beyond, of morbid levels that were not appropriate. Other parents and Mary Whitehouse would no doubt have told her. So she gave me sort of, a storyboard version of Rear Window, the Hitchcock film. The original Fly, the 50s version of it, and scenes, because she was only a child at the time. No, she wasn't. She was about 20, but she hadn't seen all the episodes. So I had described to me the sort of the visit to the food factory and Quatermass seeing, at the end. Is that the end of episode 3 or 4?
Episode 4.
That's the end of episode 4. And so, there was this vivid sort of sense of this was something extraordinary and terrified the nation. And she'd said, yes, that whatever they say about it is absolutely true. It was absolutely horrifying. And of course, she understood, because she had the same sort of imagination as I did, why I loved Doctor Who so much. And when I ran into the kitchen to say I was too frightened as the Sea Devil burnt through the metal door on the sea fort, she didn't stop me from watching it. She went, Yes, that's a good feeling, isn't it? Um, and then of course in 1970, so none of this was repeated, of course. So you couldn't see this stuff. 1979 was the John Mills thing. I went up to the post office and bought that, which was the script of Quatermass and the Pit. The next thing I recall is in the August of 1991. There was a day on BBC Two called Lime Grove Years, and they repeated remarkably the pilot of An Unearthly Child about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think the last showing that night, 10:30. I think it was at drama school. I was at University of Drama School. I can't remember, but I'll work that out later. Was episode 3, The Food. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is absolutely as groundbreaking as everybody says it is. This is absolutely superb. And it invents, doesn't it, as they film for the first time at that, whereas it's Shell oil refinery.
The Shell Haven refinery, yeah.
And the way Rudolph Cartier shot it with that piece of music, as we now learn is called Escape Velocity, it's inventing that imagery for television that becomes the staple for us Doctor Who fans in the Pertwee, is what I always call post-nuclear industrial gothic, and there it is for the first time. And I sort of taped it while we were preparing this and sent it to a few people who weren't necessarily that familiar with it, and they're going, wow, that's powerful, isn't it? The way it's shot, the way the music's used, and of course that's what we have. These are the elements that give us Inferno, of course, probably most powerfully.
I call it Pertwee side. If you can look at it and imagine a little yellow car going
sounds
through
like that sounds like someone wants to kill him, doesn't it?
I wasn't going to say that.
But yeah, and of course the scenes in Ambassador of Death and Claws of Axos, of course, and
Eldrad must live.
And Eldrad must live, of course, yes. Yeah, that's right. Filming in nuclear power stations and the like. So seeing that, I was just, and it was soon after that. I think Quatermass and the Pit was released on VHS. It might have been the same year.
Very green.
And I saw that and had my mind blown by just how extraordinary that was, and how they just bought Ealing, hadn't they? I think, and so all that filming of Quatermass and the Pit, and hadn't seen any of the films, the Hammer films, and they were all disappointing to me, including Quatermass and the Pit, which I don't think holds a candle to the TV version.
Sorry, Brian.
Brian Donlevy.
No. We can talk about Brian Donlevy afterwards. No, the Brian.
Oh, you're Brian. Oh, cool. Yeah. He's a fan of all of them, is he?
He loves the Hammer, Quatermass and the Pit. It's one of his
a lot of people do. I mean, I think Stephen Moffat said, how would you describe the Pertwee as? And he said, well, they're doing Quatermass and the Pit, the Hammer film. I think, I think they're doing Quatermass and the Pit, the original, actually. It's better than that. It's better than that.
I mean, I'm going to interrupt you again. Sorry.
And then it was that, of course, and then that was when I got to see
what
it
I've got.
Whenever this came out in early 2000s, and then
Toby's got a credit on it. I know.
I was able to read this.
I should have a bigger credit on it because they're all my photographs, and
are they?
The one stipulation was, please ask Clifford Hatch because they're his copyright, and please give me a credit for.
And you didn't get one.
Photographs, and I didn't get one, and I've never forgotten.
What year did it come out, Toby? Can you remember? It's 2003 or 4 or something like that, is it? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
It was so long ago that I was able to read that without a magnifying glass.
Yeah, I do find those little.
It says 05 on it.
Or a very, very bright light and holding it a bit closer.
Yeah, it says 05 on the back.
05. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, makes.
I remember people mentioning it when I was little. But I think my first actual encounter, and I don't know which came first, so it's either going to be the John Mills Quatermass, which I adored, and I love the book still, or I think the BBC was celebrating one of their anniversaries, maybe the 50th.
TV 50, they showed episode 3 of Quatermass and the Pit.
Well, this wasn't that, sorry. It was Eclipse show showing the best of the BBC and different genres, and they had Ringo Starr introducing a clip from Quatermass 2.
Who else?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Peace and love.
The obvious choice. Yeah.
Reintroducing Thomas the Tank Engine.
I'm not going to do that joke. Oh dear. I don't know what it is about this. I mean, I love all three of the 50s Quatermass stories. And I should be like everyone else and love Quatermass and the Pit the most because it's the most accomplished production. But I prefer Quatermass 2. I really prefer this one.
In spite
Really?
of spite of Andre Morel not being in it, for
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah. Yep. I just, it's, I don't know, maybe the story's more a me thing than the Pit. But I mean, I love the Pit, but I still prefer Quatermass 2. But not the movie version.
I love what it invents, and it takes a long time to get to episode 3. I think its early episodes are slow.
It's paranoia, isn't it?
And it all the paranoia stuff and the bureaucracy stuff and the invasion of the body snatchers, sort of, you know, building up that sense of the untrustworthy world. But then it peaks in the middle. We get to, what's the name of the refinery, Toby? Shellhaven. That imagery. And you know, and the use of the music there, and imagery like, you know, the family. It's all in.
That's a horrible section, isn't it?
Is is the little boy Melvin Hayes?
Yes.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of, you know, and it's good, and there's the scene that Nigel Neal and Rudolph Cartier admired the most, the sort of the attack on the you know, the locals attacking the factory or the refinery or whatever. What would you? Yeah.
Yeah. His Neil thought his most political was when they play over the tannoy, they play workers' playtime and say, you know, it's just a normal night at work, and try and sort of lure people into, you know, again, not asking any questions and being the architects of their own destruction, you know.
Yes,
For the promise of a wage packet and somewhere to live, you know, which is quite nice and subversive.
That's right, and of course he himself drew a parallel of sort of the prophetic nature of the fact that the next year was the Hungarian Rising, and the footage of the Hungarian Rising being crushed by the Soviets reminded him of his own work the year before. And then so you've got this very powerful central section, and then it sort of tails off with the flight into space at the end. So you've got this, you know, unlike most Doctor Who stories, which are very strong at the beginning, very strong at the end, you've got a soggy bit in the middle. You've got the best bit in the middle, and it sort of rises to a climax and then goes down. Whereas Quatermass and the Pit, for me, you've got Andre Morel, the centre of it. You've got the extraordinary use of Ealing Studios and the Pit stuff, so it feels cinematic. The use of the music and the fact that the structure of the thing gradually rises to its climax, and so as a structural, as a piece of writing and a piece of direction, it's almost perfect. Was near perfect a piece of television as you could possibly imagine in 1958.
The thing is, it doesn't have a Thunderbirds puppet as Leo Pugh.
No, that is absolutely true.
I'm just saying.
That's what lets it down.
Yes.
Yeah. Not enough eyebrows.
Not enough of the eyebrows.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Okay. No. Fair comment, Siobhan. Fair comment.
Oh.
Yeah.
What about you, Toby? I mean, you get to write and talk about this all the time, which reminds me, I need to thank you. This is the first time I've had to chat properly since the Alexander Paris Quatermass experiment.
Yes. Well, I gave my fuller love.
Yes, indeed. And that could be taken so wrong.
Is that Whitson Jones in one of them?
It's Whitson Jones in Experiment. Yeah,
in Experiment.
Brian Worth in Quatermass.
Brian, that's right. Yeah.
So I'd seen the Quatermass Experiment film with Brian Dunleavy.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't hugely impressed. Thought it was quite boring. But when I went to the Ali Pali event, I was gripped. Absolutely gripped, and
good.
It's given me this whole new appreciation for the Quatermass Experiment. But at the same time, curse you, Toby, because now I want to see the remaining 4 episodes.
Well, I'm afraid you never will.
No,
So,
they weren't lost. They were never recorded.
they were never recorded.
Yeah.
No.
Although segments of episodes 3, 4, and 5 were recorded on a film camera during rehearsals to use as previously ons on episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Does anybody speak Norwegian?
Pardon?
No one speaks Norwegian?
I know Jeden, Jorden, Nigger de Krop de Bombit, which is
doing the rounds this
Spence
week.
and the John Pertwee character.
Oh yes,
yeah.
It was doing the rounds this week on on the Quatermass social medias. Basically, it's a found Norwegian. I think it's the version of Quatermass Experiment.
No, there's a Norwegian There's a 1991 Norwegian radio version of Quatermass and the Pit.
There we go. That's it. That's the one. Thank you.
That Nigel Neal had licensed without actually letting on to anybody, so nobody knew it was around. Yeah.
What, a filmed version in Norwegian?
Radio.
Oh, radio. Beg your pardon. Right,
Yeah.
okay, radio. Yeah, right. Okay.
How frustrating. I'd love to hear that, but I wouldn't understand a word.
Yeah.
So what was your first encounter with it, Toby? So how old were you?
It's funny, Steve. We both came to it through our mothers. Isn't it interesting how parental approval of something gives it a luster? I remember it was always spoken of in very hallowed terms, and we had a hardback book called The that had under Q, it had Quatermass, and it said Quatermass isn't a monster, it's a professor who blah, blah. And they got a picture of the Martians from the TV version of Pit that have that sort of very gruesome sort of locusty. They look quite real. But it was always, I remember the film of Pit being advertised on what's coming up tonight on BBC, but it was too late for me to be on, and it was always Quatermass. It was always, and I think I have memories of the 1979 John Mills one, because I always remember thinking things were quite sort of grown up if they had people with jumpers and Land Rovers and shotguns. That seemed quite grown up and believable sci-fi. But I remember my mum had always talked about the gravel moving, and the gravel moving was this thing.
Yeah.
And I remember I was lent the VHS of Quatermass and the Pit. And I was watching it in the sitting room. My mum came in and she said, "Oh yes, I remember this. This is where the gravel starts moving." And I was like, "You probably mean Doomwatch," because they talked about Doomwatch quite a lot. We've got to. And I went, "Oh, you're probably thinking of something else." And literally at that moment, Richard Shaw hits the deck and the gravel starts moving. And I remember thinking, well, if my mum, who is not sympathetic to science fiction,
right?
We'll put she's not a fan, but is I was always allowed to watch Doctor Who, and I was indulged in that sense. But it was certainly very much, it was my thing. So the fact that something had the approval and had it impacted itself into the memory banks of people who weren't necessarily sympathetic to it particularly meant that it had. It's all right that I might like something, but that brings with it certain amount of self-loathing and well, of course I would. I'm a geek or whatever. But the fact that real proper grown-up people might like it, so that gave it an impressiveness in my mind, and I was shocked by how clever it was. Not just that it was a good production, even though it predated all the Doctor Who's that I'd by then watched. But that it was a sort of higher caliber of production, really, because it was a bigger budget and because it was a drama production and blah 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 blah. But I think it was the fact that it was so clever that it merged sci-fi and horror and stole the best bits of both, but with it had social commentary that was extraordinarily sophisticated. And I think the social commentary and subtext of Quatermass is sophisticated for today, let alone for 1958. And the fact that it all comes together in that shocking climax of Quatermass and the Pit, where all of the strands tie together, but it's also extremely satisfying drama. I think it's sort of miraculous, actually. And the fact that something that had been spoken of in such hallowed terms actually turned out not to be disappointing, but turned out to be an extremely competent, well-made, impressive production. when I was watching in the 1980s, and yet still had the haunting black and white atmosphere that I always associated with the Universal horror films that were sort of untouchable because they were so long away. I've just been putting the finishing touches to what I should be doing tonight, actually, is do some more proofreading of my book, the first volume, which is just about the Quatermass experiment. But I was minded in reading the foreword and updating that, going, I first wrote to an actor from Quatermass, and when I was doing it, I thought I was writing to them about, untouchable days of the ancient fusty history. And I wrote my first letter in 1989, and this book I'm putting the finishing touches to 35 years later. And in 1989, the Quatermass experiment was 36 years previously. So as much time has passed between then and now as it passed between, and as I say, I was surprised anyone was still alive, and the first actor I wrote to was actually Richard Shaw, who is the guy that hits the deck in Quatermass in the Pit, and he wrote back a lovely letter. And if he hadn't written back, you wouldn't see the monster you see before you now, who has written to any number of actors.
Wow. Who's also in the Space Museum and Frontier in Space, of course, isn't he?
Randy has a bucket on his head in Underworld, poor love. Yeah.
Bless him. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
God, two of them. I didn't know when I was well off.
An ignominious end to his Doctor Who career, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Yes, it's diminishing returns. He's the lead villain in his first one.
I know.
By his last one, he's got a bucket on his head.
Oh dear, but he's very good, isn't he? As Sladen, isn't he?
He's amazing. It's a brilliant
extraordinary performance, because it's Duncan Lamont in the film, isn't it? Who is
which you can see why they did, because he'd been the man into Monster in the first Quatermass.
Yeah.
And Richard Shaw had been asked to be in the film with Pitt and was not available. So you think, let's go to Duncan Lamont, but Richard Shaw plays it as if he's in the grip of an alien inheritance, whereas Duncan Lamont plays it like he's gone a bit mad.
Yes.
And I think Shaw's is a better interpretation.
It's those extraordinary sort of satanic bestial movements, doesn't he? He's animated by those evil creatures. And every time I see it, yes, he does. Every time I see it, I'm convinced by. That's the thing about it. It never loses its shine. This thing, it exceeded didn't just fulfill my expectations of how wonderful it would be when I saw it. It exceeded them, and every time it does the same job, and every time I'm unnerved by it, and every time I watch it, and the old ladies, looking in the ground. The first time you hear that music cue, and you go, oh God,
mutations. That's mutations.
That's mutations. Shivers down the spine. And then, of course, the great moment when the thing falls. That little jump scare. The demons. And the moment that I think is the sort of, in a sense, that if there's a sort of little synecdoche, a momentary birth of the character that becomes Doctor Who, and it's not. I used to misremember it until I rewatched it more recently. He's talking to, is it Fullalove? This is the journalist, isn't it? And they're in the capsule, and Fullalove says to him, "Could this have originated on Earth?" And Morell thinks from him, and he goes, "No." And there's just that sense of he knows more than anybody. There's something about he's got this extraordinary sentience. And you see, and that's a Doctor Who moment of our central character, who is wiser and more knowledgeable, and perceptive and percipient than anybody else, and knows that this couldn't possibly come from the planet. It's a beautiful moment. He plays it perfectly.
And actually, what Morell has that the other two Quatermasses don't have is that he's quite funny as well. He's got a lovely bit when Colonel Breen's just been throwing up. Because of the alien vibrations, and they say, and he says, "I'm going to go and do this thing," and they say, "Well, shouldn't we ask the Colonel?" And he goes, "I think you'll find he's fairly amenable at the moment," which is a lovely line.
yes, which is like sort of in early embryonic pertweeness, isn't it? That's that sort of ability to very deftly, without signalling humour, just sort of throw it away. And of course, Breen's I like Breen's performance, but he does hit sort of energy level 10, sort of at the beginning of every scene, doesn't he? He's permanently incandescent with rage.
It's very interesting though, because
Anthony Hind, is that his name? What's his name?
No, Anthony Bushell,
Bushell,
who was who was a great friend of Olivier. And,
I love Olivier.
produced
That's right.
for
Yeah.
him. But interestingly, he did it because he was a mate of Andre Morel's as well. Because he did a lot behind the scenes. But it's very interesting that looking at it now, it's the most dated of the performances. But at the time, it was the one that was singled out by a lot of people as being the one that they liked because it was such a recognisable type, the sort of blimpish colonel, and so it's probably time has been less kind to it than it has to say Cease Linder, who plays Dr. Roney, who is actually very vital and modern. But I would argue that some of the viewers at the time were perhaps not quite ready for that.
They were used to more theatrical performances on television.
It's interesting.
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
Yeah. No, I can't praise it highly enough. And we're not supposed to be reviewing that. We can come back and review this one again. Well, let's try and focus on Siobhan. Give us more of a defence of 2 against these
All right.
weighty allegations.
Okay, well, we already know about the social commentary in 2. The threat of being taken over from the inside. So, what are we talking? Communism? Is that what Neil was referring to? That sort of thing? Some sort of insidious inside thing?
Well, he wasn't party political, but he didn't like bureaucracy. So it's more faceless bureaucrats controlling us. That's why they take over Parliament and authorities. I suspect. Well, I know because I've been through all his paper. He was a writer of a letter, was Neil. And I would.
Sir.
He could very well. It would have not been out of place living very angrily in Tunbridge Wells, just flying off missive after missive. So he wasn't particularly party political, but there's also in the Isle of Man where he grew up, there was internment, and there were lots of grey buildings with barbed wire outside of them that people weren't allowed in. So there was that as well. So I think the inspiration came from what could be housed in mysterious buildings. He didn't, and a sort of rather banal evil. He wasn't, he wouldn't have been a crazy conspiracy theorist in the sense that he was more infuriated with pen-pushing bureaucracy, and so turns that up to 11 and makes that the sort of alien threat, if you like. And so I don't think it's what about the commies or what about the fascists? It's more what about the individual against the relentless pursuit of bureaucracy and telling us what to do.
I think it's also the beginning of that strand of strong strand of British television drama, which is about us, what our government is doing that we don't know, we're not being told about. And of course, this is has the H bomb been made yet in 1955? I think have we quite got that yet? But there's all that awareness that in the post-nuclear state, there are all sorts of government installations being set up, doing we know not what, and we get that strand, and it takes us to wonderful things that I love, like Penda's Fen, Penda's Fen, the David Rudkin play in the 70s, where there's the kid gets out of the car and goes and he comes back and he's been hideously scarred. There's something the government are doing there, and that of course reaches its final outworking, I think, with Edge of Darkness in 1985. It's not so much what they're doing over there; it's what our lot are doing here. That this is what's unnerving. Not worried so much about the communists, but what the capitalists are doing to fight the communists. We are being infiltrated by our own need for secrecy, or our government's belief that there are things we cannot know about.
Well, it's not
in our interest.
The subversion of secrecy and patriotic secrecy. Because in here they're definitely evoking, okay, we're going to be secret just like we were in the war. evoking that, but twisting it to their own ends. It's a betrayal.
Yeah, it very, you know, it uses those posters, and you know, they deliberately evoke the posters from, you know, Shusha secrets, sealed lips of the wartime. But what this is about is saying, don't tell anyone about this process that's building these little towns. It's all about parochialism and making us our own worst enemy on very thin promises of bungalows and a decent wage bracket. We give people bungalows and a wage bracket, and they will build the means to spearhead an alien invasion that will rob us of our identities.
On that point, I need this cleared up, please. Is it Winnerdun with a D or Winnerton?
Well, Toby can tell us from the script, can't it?
It is, and it is bizarrely, it is Winnerdun with a D, even though it sounds like Winnerton. Everybody says Winnerton, but in the script, it is Winnerdun with a D.
Thank you. That is cleared up.
Now we know. We've had it from the script.
Second time Toby's on talking about Quatermass. Second time he's cleared up a mystery for me. I'm really grateful. 2 for 2.
What was the first one?
I'd recognised an actor in the Quatermass 2 film and TV series, and I think he played the same role in both.
Oh yeah, John Ray, who plays McLeod in both.
Right.
So
he had the advantage of he was a regular in Val Guest's casting process and a regular in Rudolph Cartier's casting process. So he must have thought all his Christmases had come at once when each one did the small screen and the big screen version of Quatermass 2.
fair dues.
And you've got, of course, to carry on sort of on this theme. Of course, it's not just workers in factories that aren't told what they're making. Of course, there's the realization that on the Manhattan Project, they weren't told that Hitler had stopped his atomic project in 1942, and that they weren't making it in a race against the Nazis. They were making it because we wanted it. And so they thought, oh, we better make this bloody thing because Hitler's going to have one. And then, of course, they got to the end of the war. They'd made the thing, and they said, well, we've made it now, but we don't use it. And the military said, thank you very much, we're having that, and we're going to use it. And, of course, the cynicism of Hiroshima being chosen, not because it was of any strategic significance, but because it had never been bombed before. So they could see exactly what
target, wasn't it?
They chose it because it had not suffered previous damage because there was no reason to bomb it. So they could look at the plans of what it looked. They could see exactly what it looked like before, and they could see exactly what it looked like. See exactly what the bomb did. So it was a completely.
Wow,
it had no strategic significance whatsoever.
Excuse me for just a second. My laptop battery is about to run out, so I'm going to have to go and get a plug to plug it in.
Can I take this opportunity to have a pee then? This it seems like a.
There we go.
Are we live? We're live, aren't we?
Yeah,
are we live?
Yeah,
oh, right. Okay, carry on.
No. You see, you're assuming we have an audience.
Do we not have an audience?
There's never any audience, so we'll probably get about 20 views on.
We
YouTube.
are. I keep forgetting we're live. Of course we are. I'm just going to.
No, you can bugger off if you like. Don't worry. And Tobes, it means Noonan gets a dose of his own medicine because whenever he phones me up, it's just dear. Well,
I'm sorry. Can you clarify? What do you mean, oh dear?
You have
my battery.
Your battery level is off.
Yeah.
Go to the loo, Noonan. Go on.
It won't take me long.
It's all right. No worries. Come back in just a couple of moments for round 2.
I told you we weren't needed.
I know. I think this is wonderful. I'm just sitting back, just loving it. It's brilliant. Oh, one of the best shows we've ever done, I think. And obviously, with no offence to Brian at all.
No.
But I think he knew what he's doing, I think. I think this is only the second show he's ever missed.
Really?
Out of 184.
My goodness. Well, we miss him.
Of course we do.
And we hope the pub's all right.
Yes, very much so. Horace. Oh, I'm sick of all this.
I know.
I just am. There's a little bit of paranoia in my head saying knowing me is dangerous. And it's just...
No.
It's just
This
the
is
passing.
just how
The thing is,
life
it's the passing of years, exactly. That's what it is. Right, now, when they come back, we're going to try and talk about Quatermass 2. There's no guarantees. And then, of course, we've still got to do Spearhead from Space.
Yay!
That's all right.
And I brought the Spearhead from Space quiz.
Oh dear.
Have
I did dig out my Blu-ray.
you watched it?
I have.
Oh, good. Right. There's no good looking at the cover.
I say mine, like I owned any of these. This is all Dave's stuff.
Right. How many has he got?
Right.
A ridiculous amount
Right.
is the answer.
Well, the good thing about the Spearhead from Space quiz is that unusually for these, because it was early days with this particular volume.
Is
There are
this
only
your
20.
is
there are
this
only
your
26
14-year-old self?
No, this is my probably 35-year-old.
All right,
self.
I
So
can
it's quite a
handle-
while ago.
I can handle
So-
your 35
Yeah,
year
yeah.
olds. Well, actually, you
26
probably got my score down there.
26 questions. Did you do this one?
Of course I did.
Of course you did.
I'm waiting for questions on Planet of the Daleks at the moment.
Ah, well, I haven't written them yet.
I
It
know.
only goes up to Frontier in Space.
I
Well
know.
remembered.
Thank you.
And well remembered for where he goes up to.
The scars
shall I-
last,
Shall I try, as you've done it before? Shall I try it on the other two?
if they're willing.
Yeah. Have you watched it just imminently?
Yes, yes,
recently?
yeah, yesterday.
Yeah. Very good. So you'll be good on these. I guarantee.
The
You'll get some
problem
of
is
these
I
right.
never remember anybody's name.
Right. Well.
You
If
didn't
you
have
say,
the target book to imprint it.
which I have here, of course. Yeah. I have it right here. There it is. And the Auton invasion.
Yeah, man.
Yes. One of the. I think it's Terence's first, isn't it? And one of his best,
I think
because
you're
he was
right.
really getting his finger out in those
I
days.
think it was
Yeah.
that one and Day of the Daleks, was it?
This was the first. Maybe it was Day of the Daleks the second one.
Might be. They're very similar in
Toby will
style.
probably know. That was Terence's first. Do you know what his second was, Toby, of these novelizations?
Now ask your
Saying
question
that-
again.
Just saying that's the first of Terence's. Do you know what the second one was of Terence's?
Day of the Daleks?
It could. I think it probably was Day of the Daleks. Yeah.
Now, Noonan has decided that he's going to go and he's got a quiz, a spear.
I've got it. But we that's a Spearhead from Space quiz. But we need to address Quatermass 2.
We've
So
barely
it's-
touched on Quatermass 2.
I know.
Exactly. Well, so come on, let's have some more defensive arguments
Okay.
of.
I like John Robinson's portrayal. I don't see people's
Yeah.
problems with it. I love the fact. No, sorry, I've got myself a bit muddled there. I do apologise. No, I haven't. No, it's Quatermass's daughter is in this.
Yes.
Judith, who
Paula.
meets a grisly fate on a German autobahn.
Paula, played by Monica Gray.
Monica Gray.
And like I say, that links forward to the 79 Quatermass book where it's mentioned and her fate. And the 79 Quatermass really means a lot to me.
Was Monica Gray married to somebody?
She was the wife of Val Gielgud, who was John Gielgud's brother. He was the head of drama at the BBC.
That's it. That's
Which
right.
is why
he
she's
was-
too old to be Quatermass's daughter.
No, she's not. She's not. She's about 29. She
Really? They just
yeah.
dress her very old?
She was much younger than Val Gielgud. She was she wasn't that old at all. It's just heavy makeup and people look different in them days.
50s television, I guess. I
yeah,
just looked
yeah.
at her and went, I don't know about daughter.
I've got the feeling that the makeup must have been fairly theatrical because of the lack of definition.
She was they had to sort of plaster it on. And she was 20. I think she was 26 or 27. So I mean, young and much younger than Val Gielgud, who was in his 50s, I think. And in fact, Stephen, when you watched episode 3, The Food, when it was part of the Lime Grove story, I had been to her house in St John's Wood that very day, because
Good
I was
Lord.
in London that weekend. Yeah, bless her.
Wow.
I corresponded with her for many years. She was lovely, and even she would admit that she's terrible. She's no longer with us now, sadly. But even then, she felt she even in whenever that was in the 90s, she freely admitted that she was
They
terrible
just
in
don't
Quatermass
give her
2, which
much
she
to
is.
do.
I think her terribleness is overstated. She's nowhere near as terrible as people say she is. I don't think.
It's a very badly written part. I think both Pugh and Paula suffer from the fact that the least interesting stuff is happening when they're on screen. They're sort of there to cut back to. It's no
Yeah, I know what
it's
you
no
mean.
surprise neither of them are in the movie. Is
No.
because those two characters are there to cut back to really, while Quatermass is doing all of the exciting stuff, and Pugh gets some stuff to do at the end, of course. But up till that point, they've pretty much been there to sort of recap us on what we already know, or to fret back at the Rocket Group.
Yeah. Well, Hugh Griffith's face is sort of interesting enough to look at by itself without any sort of decent lines, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
he just looks dramatic. He just has to look round from the radar, and you get a bit of a jump scare.
He looks like Dennis Healy playing a wizard.
He does very much so.
Well, and he gets a tragic end, and he is the kick at the end.
Yes, although sadly the execution of that, I think robs it of, because on the page I think it's dreadful, and it's very, very sad, and that idea of, I mean, we're jumping the gun a little bit, but that idea of the fact that he is left floating into space, shouting for help, and Quatermass knows he has to sort of leave him there, and of course the alien subjugation of him has gone. So
Yes,
he's been freed to wake up, cast adrift in a spacesuit. Unfortunately, the realization of that is a doll floating on a kaleidoscope with Hugh Griffith off camera with his head in a bucket going "help" in a high pitched voice. And I would argue the ambition there outweighs the execution. And I talk as a dyed in the wool Quatermass person, but I think the final episode of Quatermass 2 is possibly the weakest installment of Quatermass that we have.
The weakest surviving episode.
Yeah.
Think? Yeah. I think I might be inclined to agree. Is Cyril Shaps? It's always great. It's always great to see Cyril Shaps. The first of many delightful performances that we've all come to know and love.
He's 9 years old in that episode.
And he
just
still
never
looks,
looked at it.
and he looks exactly the same as he did the day he died. Yeah. What's okay? Come on, Toby. Let's have the rundown of Cyril Shaps. Is his first one Ambassador? No, Tomb of the Cybermen. Tomb of the Cybermen.
Then Ambassadors of Death.
Ambassador of Death. We got
then Planet of the Spiders.
Planet of the Spiders. Professor Craig, of course, and the Archimandrite. That's it, isn't it? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Magnificent millinery.
You see, there's nothing wrong with your recall, Toby. There's nothing wrong at all. It's all there. It's all there.
For actors, it sticks, but for geography and music and things, I have to.
Anything important, forget it.
Dates,
Well,
where the keys are. What you have to buy grocery store.
Okay.
Real life. No fucking way.
Here's one for you. Who was the production assistant?
On which one?
On what?
On Quatermass 2.
Paddy Russell was Rudolph Cartier's assistant. And
there's another Doctor Who director who was a production assistant. Michael
Leaston Smith works on Quatermass 2. He's also the lighting engineer on Quatermass Experiment.
There you go. Right.
And then Michael Hart, who directed The Space Pirates, is assistant floor manager on Quatermass and The Pit. So there's lots of Doctor Who directors to go. George Spenton Foster's a call boy on Quatermass Experiment. So there's lots of sort of Doctor Who types working. In junior positions.
I was at a funeral recently, my uncle's funeral, and one Daryl Blake was there.
Oh yes, well Daryl is a design assistant on Quatermass.
That's right. And I've met him at previous occasions, and he says, "I'll talk about Quatermass, I'll talk about Doomwatch, but I'm not talking about the Stones of Blood." He always says.
Oh, bless him. He tried to connect with me on LinkedIn this week. I don't know why. It was it's either him or somebody pretending to be him. People have tried to get to me in ways of more cunning subterfuge than that. But yes,
Have you spoken to him? Have you interviewed him?
I've been round his a couple of times.
That reminds me. Yes, you just said that. I'm so terribly sorry. I'm moving to Derby at some stage, hopefully this year, Toby, which means you're only an hour and a half away. That's good, isn't it?
That's superb, yes.
I am going to be coming to Excess Malarkey, maybe once a month, but I'll be coming.
Excellent. Oh, good. Oh, well, that's exciting.
I'm looking forward
Everyone's
to that.
leaving London. Everyone's leaving that there, London. Yes. Quatermass has a few sort of Doctor Who people in learning position. Daryl was, only in his late teens, and was pretty much, had ridden up on his bicycle and knocked on the door and asked for a job, really. And Stephen Taylor, the designer of Quatermass 2, was highly regarded and was believed by those who knew and worked with him that he would be one of the great television designers, but he was dead before the decade was out. He died on the last day of 1959, but ran out of money for episode 6. I think we take television going into space in our stride, but of course mankind, we hadn't even landed on the moon then, so going into space was a big deal, and so very much a sort of climactic thing. But as you say, with Quatermass 2, I actually prefer the early episodes to the climax in the plant. I think he writes journalists and ministers better than he writes Salt of the Earth characters. I think a bit like Orwell, there's something slightly patronising in the way that he writes working class characters, and I think maybe that's a thing of the 50s, where it's all a little bit arch, and you've got the Englishman, the Irishman, and the Scotsman as well. It's Paddy MacLeod, and in fact Sladen was originally written as Paddy O'Flynn, which would have been awful. So thank God they cast Richard Shaw and made it slightly different. Yeah. But I think he writes his shadowy corridors of Westminster very well. I think he does his journalists very well, because of course he'd been a journalist. His dad was a newspaper editor.
I think that's one of my favorite characters, actually.
The master.
Yes.
Yeah. Roger Delgado being absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think my two favourite scenes. There's one in episode 2, and it's interesting that they're both actors that went on to have extraordinary careers. Rupert Davis as Vincent Broadhead, a very salt of the earth northern politician, who, when they're looking at photographs of the plant, and he goes, "Is this the same?" And Quatermass goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "That was taken on an inspection flight over central Siberia." And you go, "Hang on, there's one in. Wow, that's really." And then this idea that this stuff is spreading all over. And the greatest scene in it is when Roger Delgado, as Hugh Conrad, the journalist, phones through his story, hurriedly trying to explain to somebody at the other end of the line what is going on and what is happening to him as it's happening, and then the music kicks in, and the writing is so good, and Delgado is fluent in the language of science fiction acting, and it's I think that's a wonderful scene that's really well done.
Little arc. I mean, when he shows up, it's an interesting story from a source he trusts, and this is a bit of a lark. This is going to be fun and interesting, but there might not be anything in it, but that's fine. And by the end, he realizes, oh my God, this is an absolute essential story, and I've made a fundamental mistake, and there's nothing I can do about it, and this is deadly serious, and I don't think they're going to listen.
Yeah.
That's the real tragedy, isn't it? The story will get squashed.
Well, and I just love that line.
It's called you up and said, there have been aliens. Okay, not us. We're science fiction fans. That's different. But, actual sane
I still
people,
might raise an eyebrow, to be fair.
There's been aliens here this whole time. And you'd be going, how much have you had to drink?
Well, and also he doesn't know that the person he's calling isn't in on it. That's the beauty of the paranoia.
Yes.
Is that he may be throwing stones at the moon, but I love that line. 10 minutes ago I became the victim of one. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think all of that creepy. I think the creepy build-up is great. The fact that the army aren't allowed to. It's very, it prefigures the X-Files by decades. It's very about all that conspiracy stuff. And again, you were talking about it before about it inverts the idea of the invasion in twofold. One, that it's an invasion from within, or it's insidious, certainly. And two, it's already happened. It's taken place. Yeah. They've been here for a year. Yeah. It's not taken place for quite as long as the one in Quatermass in the Pit, which is actually over. But this one is, it's not it's an invasion where the spearhead has kind of happened, and that again I think is very advanced thinking for the 50s, and he's twisting the genre before it's really been properly invented, and I think the atmosphere and the spookiness is really well done. And it's got the body snatcher element as well. The not so much doppelgangers, but familiar faces who are acting strangely because they've been subjugated by the Gestalt creature.
And something that Quatermass notices, I think, but then isn't really brought up again, is that the food plants look an awful lot like what he planned to build on the moon.
Well, that's the first twist, is that his moon project has been cancelled by the government, and he's designed it so that we can live in an alien environment. And then he happens upon this mysterious plant, and he takes a look at it, and it's his design to enable something to live in an alien environment. So, yes. I mean, Quatermass is an unlucky character. Mm-hmm. We hear that his wife's dead, that everything he does goes wrong. But now, I mean, how unlucky can you get that if you design this brilliant thing to house us on another planet, it's actually then used as the housing of the aliens that are invading us? So he's not just stumbled across this invasion. He stumbled across an invasion that was facilitated by his own design, which is gloriously perverse.
And I've been my grandparents used to live out in Texas on the east side of Texas, where there are tons and tons and tons of oil refineries, and so I've driven past them, and they do look like this very bizarre science fiction hellscape kind of thing.
They feel like they shouldn't be there.
It's chilling and sometimes they do have the fire coming out of them. And it's very bizarre because you'll be going through this beautiful nature and then little towns and the bayou and all that. And then suddenly these things.
Yeah.
I think
bizarre.
That is slightly better done in the film, actually, because in the film they stumble across it and Quatermass says, the moon project here on Earth, which is, blatant. Whereas what we get with this one is John Robinson looking through his binoculars and going, I think I'm going mad.
Yeah. Yes. Exposition-wise, it's not brilliant for signalling to an audience that is watching half an hour a week, is it? That's that line.
No. And he says it's a coincidence of shapes. He doesn't go. Yes. That's my thing that I told you about 10 minutes into the episode.
Yeah. I think I similarly had there was an oil refinery called Stanlow Oil Refinery that we used to drive past a lot. I used to look across at it, and of course by this point, of course, because I was a Doctor Who fan, and because that imagery was as sort of in a strange sort of way beguiling to me, because what you call Pertwee side, what I call the post-nuclear industrial Gothic, it's as beguiling in its way as a Gothic castle to those of us who love science fiction, because it reminds us of the sort of fiction that scared us as children, and that we go towards as we go to Victorian Gothic fiction, and we like the sort of the fog shrouded streets with the gas lamps and everything. So there was always something that I think, oh wow, that looks appealingly scary. And of course, as I said, it's invented here, and that's why I was speaking perhaps a little underselling how good I think the early episodes of this are. And I agree with you, Toby, because I think we were talking about which was the better serial as a whole, and I think Quatermass and the Pit builds beautifully and inexorably to an extraordinary resolution, whereas this has its build through those early episodes. For my taste, but of course this is 1950s television. It's slower than, you know, it sustains. I would imagine, sort of, you know, you watch it piecemeal week by week. But I think with Quatermass in the Pit, whether you watched it as the VHS release without the cliffhangers, or you watch it with the cliffhangers, Quatermass in the Pit never outstays its welcome. I think that the slow build to the central section is slower than the terribly satisfying pace of Quatermass in the Pit. But yes, as you say, all the writing of that early stuff of the paranoia about bureaucracy, wonderful performances. Rupert Davis, of course, he was Maigret, wasn't he? Rupert
That's right.
Davis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you reach this wonderful climax, as you said. I absolutely agree about he doesn't write working class characters. They're terribly stereotypical. They're stereotypical in the first one. You know, the episodes we've got with
get a medal.
All that stuff is terribly sort of radio comedy, doesn't it? It suddenly feels like, is this a drama, or is this feels like sort of a 1950s sitcom or something? And it's the same with
I
the
love
the
the fact is it was trying to actually represent reality.
Well, that's his weakness.
Got the rocket through, and now we're going to have verite, if you like. You know, this is how it would be with newscasters and the press and this, that, and the other. And it's trying to be, well, unfortunately, the writing of the characters won't let it.
Well,
be.
he wanted them to be. He wanted them to be funny, but it's a slightly patronising humour. I'd argue that you know, and there's an archness again to the sort of working class characters that isn't present in some of the other characters. I mean, he writes fussy little bureaucrats as well. Ian Wilson's a journalist who just keeps saying, "Did you see any of those creatures in Quatermass in the Pit?" So he has his little kind of motifs that he gives various characters, but the ones that have aged least well are and that happens in the playing of them as well, in the way that those characters tended to be played in everything those days, which was a bit sort of, oh, what, cool, blimey, you know, and that doesn't age as well as, you know, two old stagers doing RP in ministry environment, because that
will never change.
That has changed less. Yeah.
Well, bear in mind, in its huge defence, you know, social realism in theatre, television, and film hasn't even started. Certainly not in the first 1953. We haven't even had Look Back in Anger yet. You know, we're years away from Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, you know, and all those the Woodfall films and everything, the Tony Richardsons, etc. Of this world. You know, so there's nobody writing that sort of thing effectively. So, you know, you can massively forgive Nigel Kneale for not being ahead of his time in writing working class characters.
And it was Nigel Kneale that wrote the screenplays for those when they were films. He wrote the screenplays for the Woodfall films, but as you say, they were 10 years later.
They were 10 years later. Yeah. These were lessons yet to be learned. Yeah.
There is deep pathos in the guy who's celebrating his anniversary.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and also, actually, there's Herbert Lomas in episode 1 as the old geezer who doesn't trust the government.
Yes.
Who explains about what happened and the bulldozers coming and razing the village to the ground. That's beautifully done, and actually, he's got great affection for that character, and that character turns out to be right as well. He sounds like an old duffer who just doesn't trust the government. It turns out he's solved the plot 10 minutes in.
Yes.
We have got Wilfrid Bramble in this. Let's
Yes.
face it, you know, and there is something sort of almost Beckettian about that moment, isn't there? Of the tramp sort of crawling out from the rubbish, and you know, there's a level below which Wilfrid Bramble can't go as a performer. So I think that works. He sells that to me every time.
Well,
you know.
Do you know who we nearly had in in episode 3 when he interrogates the boiler suited guy who keeps going, yeah,
Yes.
well, that is Philip Levine, who wrote a lot of very good Avengers episodes.
Avengers. Yeah.
But that could have been Arthur Lowe.
Oh my God!
We lost our. Well, he was
Yeah.
too busy. Oh, he wasn't. No, because there's no Coronation Street yet, is there? I was going to say. Is it? Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
years away from. Yeah. Good lord. Good lord.
Yeah, that could
Yes.
have been Arthur Lowe.
So yeah, what happens to Arthur Lowe between the end of Kind Hearts and Coronets and the first episode of Coronation Street?
I think there was a
It
lot
could
of
have
stage
been.
work.
It could have been this, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's character acting, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Here, there, and everywhere.
His wife tended to organise it, didn't she?
Elizabeth. She's upstairs, isn't she? Banging
Yes.
on the floor.
She's taken on so. I was
yeah,
listening
he was a jobbing character actor in the 50s, you know.
Yes,
he was,
yeah.
Yeah,
I know, but I just you often see, people pop up. I can't think of many things I've seen. Oh, there's an episode of the Avengers, isn't there, that he's in? One of the color ones, where he's a very, very eccentric scientist. Surprise, surprise.
he's in a thing. He's in just one episode of. He's in one of the first episodes of Zcars, I think episode 2 or 3 of Zcars.
Yes.
He's in a thing called The Long Way Back that Barry Letts is the lead in, actually, which is a prisoner of war escape drama from I think 61, 62, around then. But he's not even the major guest star of that episode of that he's in. He's very much character player.
Can I just point out, Big Finish released the recording of the performance of the radio scripts, we'll get there, for Dad's Army this week. I think is it Toby Longworth? And it's 3 episodes performed live by just 2 people, and it's brilliant.
Well, David Benson and Jack Lord.
That's it, David Benson. That's it.
Not Jack Lord, Jack. I don't know. I didn't know you were going to talk about this. So
no, it's just because we went that way.
No, not me.
Not Jack Lord from Hawaii Five-0.
Not Jack Lord. There is another actor. There is a modern actor called Jack Lord who I've worked with, but it's not him that's doing the Dad's
You
Army.
brought up Arthur
It's
Lowe,
somebody
and
else.
my brain just went there.
Well, inevitably. How could it not?
Well,
how could
quite.
it not? We're doomed.
Can we have some closing thoughts on Quatermass 2, please?
Brilliant conspiracy thriller, but better than the fact that it's the sort of forgotten Quatermass. Really, it's really creepy in its early installments. It's got some magnificent moments. We haven't even mentioned the bit where Derek Aylward walks down the ladder covered in ammoniac black slime.
Terrifying.
That they sort of nick shot for shot in the movie,
film.
especially the bit where he puts his hand and it smudges it down. That's a wonderful moment. Roger Delgado's excellent in his episode. It's about something. It's quite subversive. It does fall apart in the end, where its ambition it exceeds the possibilities of what they could do. And I would argue, and I'm a big fan of the TV versions, and less so of the films, but that's because I came to the TV versions first. But Brian Donlevy aside, I would say that the execution and indeed the scripting of the movie is perhaps in most places more effective than the TV version, unusually, just because they lop off the end and they tighten it up a bit. And much as even though I love the slow build up and the sort of paranoid conspiracy stuff, but it's still high end British science fiction that certainly deserves to be better remembered than it actually is, I think.
Fair enough, Stephen.
In the 80s, they used the Merseyside local group used to put on events.
A sinful group. If ever I heard the MSLG sinful. Oh.
Well, I don't know anything about the background. I just used to go, but I didn't see anything going on. Although Richard Franklin turned up once. That's another story. But
that's not what I meant. But it doesn't matter.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, so I went to several of these in hotel, and they used to show single episodes Doctor Who, and so that there would be, you'd go in and you'd see, because we hadn't seen any of them in the early to mid 80s, so you'd see a single episode of a story, And so, for instance, episode 4 of The Seeds of Doom, which I haven't seen since 1976, and you go be sort of astonished by how extraordinarily good that particular episode was. And then I love Seeds of Doom; it's actually possibly one of my favourite Doctor Who stories. But that episode stood so strong in the middle of the story, and then I saw the rest of the story. Perhaps other episodes, weren't quite as strong as a single episode I saw in isolation. That stands for this, I think. That seeing that episode of The Food in 1991, then being desperately keen to get hold of seeing the rest of it, and when I did see the rest of it, was somewhat disappointed, particularly by the end of it. As you intimated earlier on, Toby, its reach exceeds its grasp. But you've got to admire their chutzpah in the 50s to think, we can do a 6-part thing, and we can do this thing with this great big industrial plant, and we can do all that, and then we can, imagine we've got the budget to take it out into space at the end. I think it would benefit from not bothering to get out into space for the last episode, and if only they'd they'd stage the denouement on Earth, you'd have something that was very strong and very solid. Perhaps truncate the early episodes a little bit, have the build a little bit less slow to the middle. But that central section and the whole the blending, as he does so wonderfully, as has been stated, of the horror sci-fi, but with fascinating political components, and inventing things that become so familiar and dare I say cliched, if you like, in series that we love, like Doctor Who. And we're going to go on to talk about a story which homages, being the polite word for plagiarizes, or all this material that Nigel Neal invents. He invents horror sci-fi television. His significance is undeniable, and I think it's a shame we haven't got very much of the first one. When the DVD came out, I think I was under the misapprehension there were bits of the second one that were missing, so I was absolutely cock-a-hoop to see if I was going to be able to see the whole thing. But it's wonderful that we haven't got much of the first one. We've got all of the second one, and it's wonderfully ambitious. John Robinson, I think, gives a sort of a strong, dignified, but sort of unremarkable central performance. But what's marvelous is that as we watch this, we know we've got the great splendor of Quatermass and the Pit to look forward to, with the great sort of the great casting of Andre Morel, and a narrative and a direction, and the blending of live. Unbelievable! They were showing these things live. The way they managed to cut in the film sequences, it all sort of comes to great sort of flourishing splendor in the last one. But it's a wonderful sort of transitional moment in the series.
Makes me wonder if being able to direct television like that is a lost art.
Of course it is. Well, it's like Stephen Moffat said. He said I could quite easily, master the skills to direct a Doctor Who episode now, because there's loads of people around to help me, and it's done slowly. You move the camera, then you move around, and And he said to handle a television studio, to be in the gallery, and to have that sort of, that mastery of doing it. A sort of live performance, isn't it? Even in the 70s, to be cutting between the cameras, etc., takes such extraordinary skill. Don't think there's anybody around who still knows how to do it.
Graham Harper.
Or either Graham Harper, possibly, yeah.
The boys from Inside
the
Number
last
9
one.
Hired him to direct their
To do that,
special.
the Krampus one, yeah.
Because he knew about multi-camera setups.
Because he knew it, yeah.
Shall we move on? Oh no, a little bit. Last thoughts.
But there's one thing you cannot talk about Quatermass 2 without mentioning, which of course what everybody mentions when they go, but of course the thing about Quatermass 2 is John Robinson doesn't know his lines in episode 1 because he was cast at the last minute, which anyone that says that is talking utter shit, because the filming was done a month before episode 1, all the pre-filming, and John Robinson had longer to prepare for the role than Reginald Tate did when he was cast in the Quatermass Experiment. So I'd like to put that one to bed. Thank you very much.
So no excuses for John Robinson.
See, I knew this fact because I listened to Toby's podcasts, which you can get from Patreon.
Right.
There you go.
It's probably one of the ones I wang on about a lot.
I to this one, I'd seen Quatermass in the Pit, and Dave had talked consistently about Quatermass, and sort of probably bought the DVD planning to do it on our podcast, and then we just never got around to it. But this was the first time I'd sat down and watched it properly, and what I did was I watched one episode a day.
Yeah.
And that was a far better way to watch it than it was when I previously tried when we were going to do it. I don't know, at some point.
A while ago now.
Yes, a while ago, where I'd started with the first two and went, oh, dear Lord. And, it could have been I get home and I've peopled all day long. I teach high school English.
Those kids aren't people.
So, I see 200 odd students a day usually, and that's a lot of people all at once. So doing this one episode, it made the recaps not tedious, because it made me go, oh, right, that's it. So they worked as recaps and not like, oh, come on, fast forward through this. And it didn't outstay its welcome. I made dinner and sat down and watched an episode a day. And I think if you're new to it, and you're familiar with, Doctor Who and everything, but you haven't seen this before, that I would recommend that's a good, successful way to watch it. With maybe not the week between episodes, but definitely a time gap between episodes, because I think it works better that way. And it meant that I was looking forward to the next episode. I wasn't going, how many of these are left?
Fair enough.
Yeah,
There we
makes
go.
sense.
Well, it's how it was meant to be watched, of course, wasn't it? It wasn't meant to be watched all at once.
And not
they
really
had
meant
to wait
be
a week.
rewatched.
Well, indeed.
You know.
No,
And
unless
I
you wanted to
did
watch one.
and I think modern television ought to do it. The title card, well, not title, but you know what I mean, at the end of the episode saying, the next episode is on this date at this time.
Yeah.
I think they ought to do that.
It also has the glorious credit in episode 2, in which the mother is played by Hilda Fenimore, open brackets, not as advertised, close brackets. That's because in the Radio Times, the original actress, Nellie Griffiths, is credited, and so they went to the trouble because presumably they knew that people read cast lists and cared about those things, which apparently we're not supposed to do
I
anymore.
also enjoyed, I think it's 3, maybe 4, where there's the warning at the beginning.
Oh, yes.
In our opinion, it is not suitable for children or for those of you who may have a nervous
disposition.
How many times have you said that now?
Which probably did exactly what all these warnings in front of TV shows did when I was a kid, which is, oh yes, and now I am interested.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's good advertising, isn't it?
It's very good
Well,
advertising.
so are we going to move on then?
We are, yes.
We
are.
But before we all get too tired, can we do the quiz? Would you like to do the quiz?
Sure.
A Spearhead from Space quiz. Toby,
Spearhead
are
from
you
Space.
up
Now,
for it?
I've got a feeling.
You don't have to.
Siobhan,
Yeah.
that you've done.
I've done all of them, love. Like I say,
Okay,
I'm waiting
you've
for
done
you
all
to
my
write Planet
quizzes.
of the Daleks.
Well,
so
do you want to sit and watch me give the questions to Toby and Lilibet,
I want to
as
see
you've
their
had them before?
I want to see their facial expressions.
Rosie has decided
And-
to come up and say hello.
And I also want to listen to the names
Are
they
you,
call
are you
them.
up for this, you two? Are you up for this?
I'm okay, but I know it's much
Okay.
later for y'all.
There's 26 questions.
Oh, God.
And so shall I give you one each? And then if one doesn't know, pass it over to
Sure.
the other one. Okay. Who's going to have the first question?
Ladies first.
Ladies
Okay.
first. Oliver. Okay. What is the name of the hospital in Spearhead from Space?
I don't know the name of the town. It's something Cottage Hospital, though.
Yes. I better do a scorecard here, hadn't I?
Are you going to pass it across?
Yes. I know,
Okay.
but I know it's a cottage hospital.
Is it the
Yes.
Ashbridge Cottage Hospital?
It is indeed. It is the Ashbridge Cottage Hospital. So that's point to Toby, and it's Toby's question. What are we first told in this story about the Doctor?
Gosh, I don't know. That he's unconscious? I don't know.
Well, he's probably been. There's something remarkable about the Doctor that we've learned for the very first time.
Oh, that he's got two. That he's got two hearts.
Yes, very good.
Oh,
That
I see.
is
What are we first
Yes,
told? What are we
that's right.
first
What-
told?
Sorry, yes.
I see.
What? Yes. What? We've never been told it before.
Yeah.
That is his
I
heart,
thought-
nurse. Yes.
I thought you were suggesting there might be a line of dialogue saying, "We found this man in the woods, and he looks like that bloke off the Navy lot." Not. This is the first time this this is revealed. I see.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
The first time this is revealed. Sorry. Yes. My poor wording. Next question, Lilibet, is, what are we first told in this story about the TARDIS? So, what do we hear for the first time about the TARDIS that we've never heard before?
That it's keyed to the Doctor's biology in some way. Did we know that before? Because the Brigadier tries to turn the key and it won't work for him, but it does work for the Doctor.
What I'm looking for is a two-word phrase which describes the particular qualities of the TARDIS, which
like,
enables it to be
multidimensional
bigger
or
on the
something?
inside, bigger on the outside, bigger on the inside
knackered.
than it is on the outside.
It's that phrase, Lilibet.
It's what?
It's that phrase.
It's
If
and
you're
a
talking
frequently.
about how the TARDIS is bigger on the inside than on the outside, it's that
Yeah,
He
phrase.
yeah.
says it's because it's, and he always comes out with his phrase.
Technobabble.
gosh.
Technobabble.
Yeah. I don't. Multi-dimensional is the only thing coming to my head, and I know that's not right. But it's something-
Dimensionally transcendental.
Yes, of course.
That's
There we are.
it.
That's right. Very good. We also learn about dematerialization codes for the first time, but that wasn't the question. Okay, and this is Toby's question. What's odd about the, in inverted commas, meteorites as they descend, according to the unit technician looking at his radar display?
Is it that they're in a pattern, or is it that they slow down? Is it that they're in a
Choose. Yes.
they're in a formation?
Flying in formation. Yes.
Formation, yeah.
Actually, looks like a bit of footage of the Red Arrows, doesn't
It does,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Lilibet. What, according to the Brigadier, does UNIT habitually deal with?
Oh gosh. They've dealt with alien invasions twice at that point. That
This
he
is a
said.
specific line about the nature of the things that they
Yeah,
deal with,
things
or
that-
they investigate.
Yes, things that are unexplained or
Yes.
unusual.
Yeah, I'll give you that. The odd, the unexplained.
Odd and the unexplained.
That's right.
yeah.
Yes, very good. Very good. Okay. Toby. Is this the first shower of meteorites?
Oh no, there've been some before, as with Quatermass 2.
Indeed,
Quatermass.
indeed. Yes. One of the many things is borrows from
Yeah.
Quatermass 2. Yes.
Let's just say, if this was handed in as a student paper, we would be having a discussion.
with Bob, little Bob, who's borrowed a lot of his ideas from little Nigel. So yeah, there was another one 6 months ago. Sorry, I'm whose question is supposed to be next? Are you
It's
keeping
Toby's.
Lilibet next.
Yeah.
No,
Lilibet next? Lilibet next. Okay. Where does the TARDIS land?
In a wood, but
It does.
it's
It
given a
hasn't.
specific name.
It is given a specific name. Yes.
I know. I don't know the name, but it's
The first syllable sounds like some sort of bovine creature. And the second syllable is a river and a boy's name. And a girl's name. A name. A Christian name. And a surname.
God almighty. I think you've broken her.
Toby?
No.
There's also a Doctor Who alumnus whose first name is Tony, who has this as a surname. But I can't remember what job he did.
It was Oxley.
It was Oxley. There you go.
Oxley Woods. Tony
Yes.
Oxley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who was Tony Oxley, Toby?
I think he's a sound supervisor, isn't he?
Yeah, something like that. It's one of those names you see going up, isn't it? Is it sound supervisor? Okay, nobody got that, but thank you, Siobhan.
It's all right.
Oxley Woods. Yeah.
Whose go is it next?
Me next.
What colour is the wall phone used by Dr. Henderson talking to Dr. Lomax? This is a screen test sort of question, isn't it?
Dear
Yeah,
God.
I was hoping you were going to say what's the name of the doctor at the other end of the phone, because it's Lomax, which is the name of the chief inspector in the Quatermass experiment, of course. But there was also a Dr.
Now look
Lomax.
here, Lomax. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
in Emergency Ward 10 there was also a Dr. Lomax. So it's a bit of an in joke.
Yes. Yeah.
Phones in those.
There we
Well, it'll either be red or beige.
It's actually yellow.
Is it yellow?
Yeah. That's. I think that was why it sort of stood
That's
out
right.
to me.
Tony Oxley was a visual effects designer.
Visual effect, isn't he? Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Lilibet, what is the name of an actor very familiar to BBC television viewers, certainly viewers of Doctor Who, and indeed Dad's Army? What is the name of Telfrin Thomas's hoovering Welshman? He's the Welsh janitor
Yes.
who
who calls
brings up
them.
Is his
And-
name given on screen?
Yeah,
He
you
says
said-
his name.
Hello, this is.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have no idea what it is because I'm terrible with names. But I know which character it is.
Yeah.
my name is Mullins.
Mullins. That's right. He does a telephone buzz. Hello. It's sort of posh little hello at the beginning, isn't it? I say, do you tell stories? There's something very funny going on up here. That's right.
That's your Tim Trello. It's brilliant.
Trevor, you mean?
Trevor, yes, of course.
And Toby, which paper does he telephone? What's the name of the newspaper?
Oh, is it the?
If you listen, you'll be able to hear
Daily
him.
Chronicle?
Yes, the Daily Chronicle. That's right, absolutely. You're very good. Lilibet. How does Mullins? We're still on Mullins. I just given the line away because I just quoted it. How does he describe the story, his story that he's trying to sell down the phone? He says,
Well, that
there's
there's something a bit funny going on or a bit
Yes,
odd
there you
going
go.
on. Yeah.
There you go. Very good. Well remembered. Okay. And Toby, what was John Pertwee's very first line as Doctor Who?
Shoes.
Shoes. Yes, let's find my shoes.
Yeah.
Yes, quite right. Very good. And this is now Lilibet's. This is not necessarily the easiest question, but Toby would know this instantly, of course, because it's his sort of specialized subject. Which Doctor Who stalwart actor do we recognise as one of the journalists in the Ashbridge Cottage
No,
Hospital?
I'm sorry.
Making his
I have
First,
no idea.
He doesn't really exist.
It doesn't really exist. Yes, as he says in another story. Come on,
I have
Toby.
no idea.
Yeah, well, and he's not grumpy, which is showing
In real life,
remarkable
he's not.
versatility.
Oh, in this he's not. No.
In this
I know.
story,
I think it might be
he's quite chilled.
I think it's his best performance.
I
actually.
agree.
the hat.
It's
the hat.
It's the. I mean, by the 70s, even his moustache is grumpy. It's the
Space
mighty,
99.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
it's,
Grumpy
it's,
is, yeah.
it's the mighty Prentice Hancock.
It is indeed. It doesn't really exist. Yes, exactly. Prentice Hancock, the great, still with us. Have you interviewed? You must have interviewed Prentice Hancock.
I have. Yes, we
Of course you have.
shared some jelly beans on
I have.
Sloane Square.
Whose question is it now? You have to tell me. We're
Toby's.
halfway through this. Toby.
It's Toby.
Okay.
This is going to be our spearhead from space section, so don't worry.
How does Monroe describe the journalistic invasion? Rather poetically, actually.
Oh,
Rather lovely line, and it just come. You say, "Oh,
yeah, no, and I'm going to kick myself when you say it, but I'm going to pass.
they just arrived like swallows in the spring." Swallows in the spring.
I like Captain Monroe. I wish
So
he'd
do
come
I.
back.
I know.
John
Is it
Breslin.
John Breslin? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a marvelous video on YouTube. I don't know if it's still there. There's a late night discussion program from a time when these things were not discussed on television, and he talks about being a gay man, and he does it with a sort of bristling decency and sort of honor, and it's quite beautiful. It's real dignity, and it's quite beautiful. Yeah. A wounded dignity. You can tell it's somebody that's actor that's had his fair share of being treated like shit. It's wonderful. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when this was made, it had only been legalized for 3 years, hadn't it? You know, so extraordinary to think what those lives must have been like. Okay. This is Lilibet's question now. Is that right? Yes.
That's right.
I've lost my place. Oh, yes. What's the Brigadier's first line addressing the Doctor?
He says something like, "Oh, it isn't him," or something, doesn't he?
Well, he's actually addressing the Doctor, so that the lines suggest lines spoken directly to him.
Oh, directly to him. Okay, because he's not conscious when they first meet, I guess.
The line is Lethbridge Stewart. "Oh, my dear fellow, how lovely to see you again."
No, I'm asking for the Brigadier's line.
Yeah, I know. I'm queuing a little bit.
Oh, I see. I beg your pardon.
Sorry. Line.
I thought, one, you're wrong, and two, what's it got to do with you anyway? Sorry, yes.
I'm being nice.
I know. I was just confused momentarily.
Oh gosh. No, I don't know. Because he says something like, "Have we met?" or "I haven't met him," or something like that in that scene. But I don't think he's talking to him.
You've just given the next line, haven't you, Siobhan? the line after this.
With Pertwee opens his eyes and looks at Lethbridge Stewart.
So what Siobhan said a moment ago is the reply to this. But it doesn't actually help.
God almighty, Stephen!
Well, don't blame me.
You wrote them!
I'm just telling it like it is. Toby, have you any idea what Brigadier first says to the Doctor?
No, I mean, I know he says in that scene, "I've never seen this man before in my life," but I don't know.
He says, "Look here. Can you hear me? Who are you?" And it's interesting. Nobody ever remembers that, because I've given this quiz to so many people, so many sort of people with chapter and verse, and even Jess, what's his name? That American musician, extraordinary.
Jerkovic.
Jerkovic, yeah.
Jess Jerkovic,
he has almost total recall. These questions. You know, it's astonishing. He seems to remember every single line of every story, but he didn't get that one either. Okay, whose question is it next?
Oh God,
Toby's.
Mine.
Yes, Toby. What does the Doctor say when the Doctor regains unconsciousness, when he falls asleep again? And it's such a Brigadier line. It's wonderful.
What does the Doctor?
The Doctor's fallen asleep, and then the Brigadier makes a comment on the situation and the fact that the Doctor's the entire situation, and it epitomizes Brigadierese. This line.
No, I don't know.
He says, "Extraordinary business."
Love it. Love it.
Okay, Lilibet. Now, somebody says a line at the end of episode 1, at the cliffhanger. There's a line which is sort of interrupted by the cliffhanger. Do you know what it is? I'll give you a clue. It's a soldier's line.
Oh gosh. No, I don't know.
Talking to another soldier. Go on, Toby.
It's the first time the Doctor Who music has come in to interrupt somebody calling someone a twat.
Or worse. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's basically, who told you to fire, you stupid?
Absolutely right. Verbatim.
Yeah, excellent.
Verbatim. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. What does the TARDIS? Whose question is this, Toby? Now, what does the TARDIS possess that means only the Doctor can? Because you were alluding to this in the answering your question. What does the TARDIS possess that means only the Doctor can use the key to open it? What's it specifically called?
Isomorphic.
Not yet.
That's Pyramids of Mars, though, isn't it?
Pyramids of Mars. No,
that's
no.
Oh, does he use a different phrase?
He does.
It's key to my something or other, but I don't know.
It's
My
got
own
a
metabolism.
Hang on, no. There's a specific. You're near. Lilybet, do you want to go? The word. It starts with meta.
A metabolic lock or something.
Metamorphic something, maybe.
It's a metabolic detector.
Metabolic. That's it.
And Toby.
That was my question.
I beg your pardon. I beg your
now.
pardon. Sorry, you got to keep because I'm no idea what's going on. How many planets are, according to the Brigadier, capable of supporting life in this section of the galaxy?
Oh,
and from which academic body does this information come? So it's a two-part question.
I remember the line because he's talking to Liz Shaw, I think.
Yeah. I'll give you the point if you can get either of them. One of them.
Yeah.
So how many?
I want to say 5, but I think that's number's way low.
If you multiply it by another number, then you got the right answer.
Yeah, I don't. Is it like Royal Astronomical Society or something like that?
Well, I think get a bit closer, get a bit further away from Bethnal Green and a bit closer to Florida, and you'll be on the right line.
Well, is it NASA? They weren't NASA yet, though.
It's not, unfortunately. No. Do you want to go, Toby?
No, I know the scene that you mean, but I don't. The words aren't coming.
Can you number of planets capable of supporting life?
There are students capable of supporting. There are 17.
No, 500 apparently.
Oh my God!
According to the Institute of Space Studies in Baltimore.
Right. Gosh.
It's funny. There's things that we miss, isn't it? And this is a terrible joke I've written here as a line. Who was the leader? Whose question is this now? It's Toby's.
Mine. Yeah.
Who was the leader of the planet where the inhabitants communicate with their eyebrows?
Well, the planet Delphon.
Yes, it's a joke that I've written here. A very poor. It's Saberna Delphon is the leader of the.
Right, good. Yes, you're right. It was a very bad joke.
Shut up. Who asked you?
But of course, we got a reference to that, didn't we, in the Christmas episode?
Yes, the eyebrows.
The Christmas episode, the last David Tennant one.
Yeah, we got the eyebrows in the
He's
David.
talking about his eyebrows.
Oh yeah. All right. There's only 3 more questions left. Can't read me in writing here.
You see, this is what phone calls with them are like. It used to be 4 hours in the small hours of the morning, and I loved every
You brought it on yourself.
I loved every bloody second of it. I have.
Whenever
we speak, I laugh like a drain.
What undeniable evidence reveals that this story is shot in the very early 70s, So it must have been shot in 69 or 70, and there's evidence for this in a particular scene.
Oh.
Who is was the Delphon question a real question?
No. Whose question?
In this case, it's my question then.
Well, you got it for Delphon. You got it for
Yeah.
Delphon. You see, you got the part. The
It's
question was
Lilibet's
real.
question. Yeah.
Okay, it's my
Lilibet's
question. All
then.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is something that I'm not going to have any cultural context for. So, I don't know. Did they shoot something like a license plate that changed, or a money that changed, or something like that?
That's a fair shot.
Yes, yeah, I'm going to give it to you, and they did. Can Toby be more specific about where this evidence is located? About money.
It's pounds. Yeah, it's pounds, shillings. No, I'd have guessed money, but where is it located?
It's the price. It's the price of the clothes in the shop window.
In the shop windows. Okay.
Worn by the mannequins. Yeah.
Right.
They're pounds, shillings, and pence. So it must have been prior to 71, and we know it's 69. Okay, so plenty a little bit.
Don't
Next
be
one.
silly, Stephen. The United States has a decimal system. You know full well we don't.
How prophetic. What's yes. What's the chart song that's heard in the factory production line scene, but is not
I don't know anything about music, but I know it's a Fleetwood Mac song.
It is indeed.
All I know.
That had to be cut out of various.
It was certainly cut out of the VHS
releases,
version. I remember it being a surprise.
But music is not my forte, so it's that Fleetwood Mac song that was cut, but now.
Yes. And I can't read my writing as to what the title was. So Fleetwood Mac will do. And it looks like Olaf Wall. But it can't be Olaf Wall, because I'm sure there isn't a song called that. Something Will. Goodwill? I don't know. I used to know the answer when I wrote this. I knew the answer. And the very final question is this Lilibet's question?
Yes.
What was the working title of Spearhead from Space? So when they were pre-planning it, and at some point it was changed to this.
Oh damn!
As we
it was
know,
in my
Spearhead
head
from
just
Space.
a second ago, and it's gone.
Yeah. Quite a nice title, but it's very much a 1980s Doctor Who title, not an early 70s or a early earlier than the Nathan Turner series. Really,
Got it.
I don't know.
It's a one-word title. Prior to the 80s, I think Inferno, Underworld, and Robot are the only one-word titles that I can think of. This would have been another one. Toby?
I don't know.
Quatermass 2. No, it was Facsimile.
Very good, Facsimile.
And it is a facsimile of Quatermass 2.
It is indeed. How appropriate. What was this isn't a question here because it doesn't apply to this. What was the working title of Terror of the Autons?
The Spray of Death.
Yes.
Didn't let me down. Excellent. And the
Scores. Come on, scores.
The scores are. I've lost the page now. Anyway, beg your pardon. What was that? What was that terrifying noise you just made? That. Yes. So at the end of that round, the only round, Toby scored 13 and Lilibet scored 3.
Oh,
That's about right.
So there we
That's
are.
about right.
Taking part. and so are we going to discuss? Are we going to discuss?
I think we'll call that our discussion. The thing
Well,
is, love.
To say it's very like the story we discussed earlier in many ways, except it's in colour, and it's got John Pertwee, Caroline John, and Nicholas Courtney in it, and Hugh Burden, and it's very good.
In Doctor Who terms, though, when I did Running Through Corridors and we watched the stories in order, the leap between the War Games 10 and Spearhead from Space 1 is probably as big an about turn and a stylistic change that the series ever
Still waiting on the
went
next
through.
one.
and that's not just black and white into color,
No.
but that's just in terms of tone and
No.
approach and everything.
That's
I
right.
adore season 7, and it's not
So do
just for the Quatermass links that every single story in that season has, but just because it has that quite earthy and all the hardware on display and the straightness with which it is played. I love all of the stories in season 7. They're all 9 or 10 out of 10s for me. And Spearhead is extraordinary because it's all shot on film. The fact that it's all on film, and the fact that they seize that and it looks $1 million, and it will look amazing again, I'm sure, when they come to revisit it for whenever the season 7 box it is, because it was made for Blu-ray, and I think it will look absolutely amazing. I think it already does, the one that they've released already.
Yeah, it does.
Looks
It does.
fantastic.
I pulled that out of the collection too.
Yeah, it's glorious, gorgeous.
And they have a nice little feature on there showing the update. Rosie, I know you have opinions on Doctor Who. Go away.
It has the flavour of an ITC series or a Hammer horror film, but is far better than any episode of an ITC series or any Hammer horror film I can think of. I think it's if only they had the budget to do every story in season 7 on film. That would be remarkable. The number of people who don't incline to enjoy Doctor Who, the number of people I've been out with in the past, and I've shown them this one, and their eyes have been open. They go, oh wow, this is really, have been held by it. And for years it was the omnibus VHS version, which sort of sustains as a film experience. I think without the cliffhangers, it works beautifully as to watch as a film. Derek Martinez's direction is always wonderful. It was when that episode of Galaxy 4 was discovered, and you saw what he'd done with Stephanie Bidmead and that extraordinary. Who knew that there was going to be this, looking down the bottle monologue, and you go, oh my goodness, that was a stylistic moment that is sort of unprecedented up to that point in the series. What he does in the Ice Warriors, unfortunately, we can't see much of Evil of the Daleks, but I think it's a masterpiece of direction. Extraordinary use of crash zooms, terrifying, like that when it suddenly sort of zooms towards the Auton waiting in the woods.
That is brilliant. That
Glorious.
is
Absolutely terrifying. We could wax lyrical about the great, possibly the most seminal, scary moment of the entire classic series, the breaking out, the massacring of the people in the street. There's an actor called Andrew Woodall who Toby may know about, who I worked with years ago. And there was one night we'd been out, we were doing a play together, and we'd been out drinking. We were talking as one does. This was in the Wilderness years when it wasn't so cool to talk about Doctor Who as it became a few years later. But the conversation turned to television that we'd watched and admired as children. And he said, I happened to live very sort of centrally at the time. I lived on Charing Cross Road, and we were out. And he said, oh God, he said, Christ, he said, the most terrifying piece of television I ever saw as a kid, scared the shit out of me, was the scene in Doctor Who where the mannequins in the window broke out of the windows. And I said, you can come back and watch it if you like, because I've got. He went, fuck off, Noonan, fuck off. No, I never want to see it again. I never ever want to see it again. No. One of those kids for whom they'd gone behind the settee and they never wanted to come out, and that was enough. And to return to it, because it's been my life's quest to revisit every single piece of telly that really scared me as a child. There's one left. I've seen the changes now. I've seen The Boy from Space. I've seen all the Doctor Who moments. There's a scene from a series called The Long Chase, which they've never released on video or DVD. It had a very young Jan Francis in it, and she was being chased by Hilary Minster, and a bunch of. And there was this scene where she was trapped in I remember it as a windmill. It might not have been a windmill. She was, or a like a lighthouse or circular stairs, and she was trapped. And it got to the cliffhanger. Remarkable. I've heard the music because it was George Fenton wrote the music, and it was. I was absolutely terrified. Totally sort of believing I was there with John Francis or being John Francis, and that's the only one left. But no, extraordinary. He didn't want to see it ever again. He was so scared by it.
I wonder if he
Well,
saw
and
Rose when it got shown.
That's exactly. They took some key elements from this into the new series. Rose being the classic example, and then Matt Smith in the 11th Hour, in the hospital stealing another doctor's clothes. You even get the semi-nude scene, and a lot of that came straight out of this.
Yeah,
because it works.
I think that all the scene in Rose. Well, they smashed the window, and we didn't need to see the window smashed. You imagine you've seen the window smashed in Spearhead from Space, but because there's something sort of sanitized about seeing digitized, however they make video look like film. There's something about the power of the 16mm. Is it shot on 16mm? So it looks real because it's shot on that real street in Ealing, and it's the same sort of footage that you would see the news footage on. So it looks like real. It looks real. It would have looked real in the 70s. Now, of course, to a young audience, it looks like a street from a long time ago. But to that audience at the time, it would have been shockingly of the now and looked like stuff they'd seen on the news. And so it has that immediacy. It has that sort of that realism, the old phrase gritty realism. But it's terribly powerful.
And we have Liz Shaw as a phenomenal character.
She's marvelous.
Some episodes they don't know what to do with her.
No,
but I love her here
story.
because she is not interested. She doesn't really want to be there. She has important work to do. And as far as she's concerned, this is a game of soldiers and kind of a waste of her important scientific time.
But I love the way that Pertwee wins her over very, very quickly with his charm and his clear interest in her intellect. And there's a lovely bit of deft playing off each other there.
Yes, where he says, "Do I have to call you Miss Shaw?" Because he's willing to. He certainly will. But do I really have to? And that does. She warms to him right away. They talk to each other as scientists.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And that establishes him as a scientific character. Even though he's certainly willing to lie to her to try and get into the TARDIS and manipulate her into doing what it is he wants to do. But I think she's an excellent character.
I agree. I'm going to round things off here. We've nearly been going for 2.5 hours, which I'm quite surprised about. Thank you both very much. Thank you.
It's been a joy.
Thank you for your time.
It's been lovely to see you again, Lilibet. And
thank you. Yes, we didn't get to meet the last time.
We didn't get to meet the last time, but I've seen you on this. I feel like I have met you because I've seen you reviewing other things, and a joy to meet you for the second time.
Yes.
I should have done that. What David Warner always used to do. Whoever he was talking to, even if you'd met him 15 times, he'd always say, David Warner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I actually saw your show, your stepson show.
Oh, yes.
Dave and I came and saw it.
Bless
which
you.
was
Thanks.
excellent, and we really enjoyed it. That was one of the summers I was over.
Oh, bless you. That's very kind of you. Thanks.
So
that was.
I should do another one, really, but let's not get into that. Are you going to be at the BFI at the next one? Stephen?
Is it well? I haven't got rather like with the I haven't got tickets, but I turned up to the Sea Devil without and just hung around outside. After a lot of people do, and did the quiz. And what I did, because I was feeling guilty, I watched the Sea Devils at home that morning, of course, just to make sure that I wasn't being
Well,
a complete interloper.
I think there might still be tickets for the Graham Williams documentary in the morning,
Oh, really?
Which is well worth you getting up early to come and see. It's a beautiful piece.
What time's it on? Toby?
Don't know. Have a look on the BFI website, but it's they're
Okay.
showing the Graham Williams thing in the morning and the story in the afternoon.
Horror Fang Rock in the
Come
afternoon.
on, Horror
yeah,
Fang
yeah.
Rock, Stephen. You can do that.
Well, I've got that DVD on or that Blu-ray on
Well,
pre-order
we looked
now.
at it only a couple of weeks ago.
I can't.
didn't we?
I can't. Yeah, but I can't.
I'm all over that Blu-ray set. I'm so sorry. You will be sick of me. If you're not already sick of me, you will be getting.
I saw the
you'll be getting a
trailer and
restraining order.
I'm very much looking forward to it, and I'm grateful Dave made us get a multi-region Blu-ray so I can order it in from the UK.
I would be very, very disappointed if you weren't all over it, Toby, because we've established that my opinion of your standing in people in the world. But no, it's always what have you done a. Are you involved in the Graham Williams documentary? Are you?
I'm not. No, I just. No. I mean, they run those sort of by me so that I'm unpaid scientific advisor, if you like. So I see them in advance. But no, I'm on the. I've done new commentaries with Tom on two episodes of Fang Rock and 2 episodes of The Invasion of Time.
Was he on humorous and mischievous form, or was he was?
He was on. I'm going to make Toby work.
God!
On Horror Fang Rock, and he was on great form for Invasion of Time. He really enjoyed doing Invasion of Time. So I think you get both Toms there. I think I earned my wage on Horror Fang Rock. I found it a challenge, but I hope you don't notice that. But my stomach was in knots.
It's funny, isn't it? With certain stories, and you look. I think, this is a Tom one. Now, can I remember whether he was having a good time or he was determined not to have a good time on this one?
I knew he was having a bad time on it, but I thought it would give us interesting things to talk about. It wasn't so much what happened during the commentary; it was beforehand where he interesting. But as I say, I hope it's fine. I hope it's all right. I'm also on the making of the Horror Fang Rock because Louise and I go to a lighthouse, and I'm also on. This will be controversial. I'm behind the sofa. Even though
I've been trying to get me and him on for one of the
honestly,
they don't want to. They don't. Why would they
behind the sofas are some of my favorite parts of those
Yes, but they have people from your actual Doctor Who on it, so I'm a bit of an interloper. But
are you by yourself or with somebody?
No, I'm with Louise. Jameson
lovely,
and
Betsy
Roberts, Pennant Roberts' widow. It's a slightly different approach.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I see? Is it Katie and Matthew Waterhouse? Is that
yes.
a combination on the sofa? I think I noticed in that'd be interesting. I've never seen that combination before.
Stephen, you've got Fugitive of the Daleks coming out this week.
I haven't.
Big Finish have.
It's coming out this week. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to basically pay you both. Just plug your stuff now, guys. Plug your stuff.
I haven't been paid for the work as well, fault. But no, delightful, lovely to talk about this stuff, and it'd be nice to do it again sometime.
Yeah,
do another one.
Next week, a little bit. I'll let you know because I need to check with Brian because he said there was one Doctor Who story we'd never done, and I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
So I'll check with him, and I think probably the big finish will be Fugitive of the Daleks.
Okay.
Just to poke Stephen with a stick.
Bless you all, and yes, good enough.
Yeah, and Toby, oh bless you! Thank you so much for giving us your time.
My pleasure.
I appreciate. I can't believe how much, apart from your everyday work, all the work you put into the podcast. It's just remarkable. Thank you so much.
I'm very behind, and I had 2.5 hours tonight where I could have caught up on loads of things, and I've been talking to you good people instead.
Thanks, love. Cheers. Thank you for that.
That means a lot that you put yourself behind for this. I'm that's touched. Very good.
Dear. Listen, thank you all very much indeed. I'm going to play out the end titles, if I can find them. No, that's wrong. Come on, you idiot. I do this.
Buy my book. Buy my book on Quatermass.
Yeah, when's it? Have you got an idea when it's coming out?
Well, I should have been proofreading my chapter on Nigel Neal this evening, so I'm going to go and do that now and send it to the publisher.
Oh, excellent.
Oh no, I delayed your homework. That's not good.
Hopefully in the next few months.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Right then. Say goodbye, everybody, and thank you again, gentlemen.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've got to fight for what you want, for all that you believe. It's right to fight for what we want, to live the way we please. As long as we have done our best, then no one can do more. And life and love and happiness are well worth fighting for.
We done now?
They're well worth fighting for.
Good night, Charlotte.